Barb, short for barbarian. Rio snickered. No, it's not. Idiot. Just kidding. Something to do with the tree-like powers she can shape into anything. Barb, geez. Talk about lack of creativity. I clenched my teeth upon hearing that, but then relaxed my cheek muscles so they wouldn't notice my reaction. Can she make something like a spike with her powers? Barb, spikes. Close enough. Shut up, you. Myra picked up a pillow from one of the sofas and threw it at Rio, who promptly ducked. She winced and massaged the side of her neck. I'm not in a mood for your jokes, Rio. Grumpy, grumpy. Are you okay now, Myra? Dario asked. Myra stretched down the neckline of her sweatshirt to her shoulder, revealing the side of her neck. Just redid my bandages. Here you go, Dean said, handing her an ice bag. Might help. Thanks. Myra sat on the arm of the chair where Everett was. Oh yeah, that feels good, she said, pressing the ice bag on her injury. Sorry, I wasn't able to get more of the diluter, Dario said. He held up his own bandaged arm. It's fine, I don't want to overdose on it. I actually missed feeling pain like a normal person. She pointed her finger at Rio, who had his mouth open about to say something. Can it? I can see from your face you're about to make a BDSM joke. He grinned and raised his hands, backing off. Myra, you sneaky, sneaky slime, I thought. I was raging in my mind, but I easily kept my face neutral, years of practice. She was the one who attacked me. I was sure I heard the word Barb mentioned when I transformed and fought at the mall. It turned out it was Myra's codename. The bandages on her neck were the final confirmation. I bit off a huge chunk of her flesh, I think I even reached her bone. But if Myra had powers, then I wouldn't be surprised if she could heal herself from that apparently fatal injury. Kelsey was an Adumbrae, and Myra was what? And how could she have gotten to the mall before us from where we dropped her off? Hold on, wasn't the mall just on the other side of that block? Dean asked Myra if we could take a shortcut through the parking area of the building, but she said she forgot her car pass. But what if she didn't have one? Did she even live in that building? Or did she get off there so she could pass through and arrive at the mall before us because we had to navigate the busy streets of the business district? If I'd known she had powers, I would have thought of her as the prime suspect. Not Kelsey. When my attacker mentioned a sister, it was Myra asking about Kelsey, not the other way around. I don't know shit about your sister. The mystery of the attack was slowly getting revealed. But there were more questions. Were all of them my enemies? Then why did Myra's friends stop her and save us? Were they going to silence us now? What was the blue vial she gave us back in Melcher? Control your anger, Errand, I coaxed myself. Which was easy. I couldn't properly get angry actually, more like only an approximation of it like all other emotions. After a few minutes, I wouldn't be angry at her anymore even though she did try to kill me. But it didn't mean I forgave her. Even if I did want to do so, there were no exceptions to rule number 4. My hands were tied. Emotions and the application of the rules were entirely different matters. Let's hear it then, Errand, Myra said. What happened after you ran away from the parking area? That's the last part of the story we got from Dario and Amber. I needed to be in control of the conversation and not let this turn into a Q&A with Myra on the reins. I wasn't going to be a witness grilled by a lawyer on the stand. Divert. Dario was the one in the car. I said. I was surprised when a car crashed into the man attacking me. I corroborated Dean's incorrect belief that our attacker was a man. I paused and inhaled deeply. Distraught. I needed to be distraught so I could tell a jumbled story without arousing suspicion. I'm really, really sorry, Dean. I just ran away after that. My voice cracked, lips trembling. I reached for her hands and held them. What are you talking about? Dean said. Erend calls me Dean, she explained to them. It's my second name, Amber Dean. Then she turned to me. What are you sorry for? You've done nothing wrong to me. Because I just left you. I was dying to tell you sorry over the phone, but you immediately clued me in not to say anything about them all. Cue in teardrops. Just a few, don't exaggerate. Oh, that. Don't worry about it, Erend. Dario fought off the Adumbrae. I don't actually know what happened because I passed out in the commotion. That's where Dario was injured, I think. You couldn't have done anything there. I just ran away and left you behind. I was only thinking about myself. Dean hugged me and I sobbed on her shoulder. But what did happen after? Myra impatiently said. Relax, Myra, Everett said. Can't you see she's upset? Don't think too much about it, Erend, Dario said. It's understandable why you ran away. You were scared. Could I push this a bit more? If you guys weren't there, Dean would have died. You already saved me when my leg got hit, Dean said. If you ran away that time, the Adumbrae would have killed me. You didn't leave me when it counted the most. Hey, if we're up against a strong opponent, Rio said, I'd also run and leave these guys behind. Don't sweat it. Myra made an exasperated sound. You were attacked, Dario hit the guy with his car, he and Everett got Amber while you ran away. Then what happened next? I wiped my tears and added a couple of hiccups. It was all a blur. I just ran and ran. I wasn't really thinking clearly. That door at the side of the parking area, all my focus was just getting to it. I thought it would go into the mall, but then it led into a stairwell. The door didn't have a lock. I dunno, maybe I didn't see it or I'm too dumb to figure it out. Maybe I was just super scared I couldn't think straight. I've seen on the news what Adumbrae can do. The guy who wanted to kill me is an Adumbrae, right? We think so, Dario said, glancing at Myra. Yes, he's an Adumbrae. Our enemy. She had a straight face. Anyway, what happened in the stairwell? Because I couldn't lock the door, I held it shut with my body. Really stupid, I know. I'm small and the Adumbrae could force the door open, just fling me away. I've heard, they're all incredibly strong. I just stood there by the door because I didn't know which way to go, up or down. I might get trapped if I went the wrong way. Someone grabbed me and pulled me away from the door. Which was lucky because the Adumbrae shot several spikes that pierced through the metal door. Someone? A woman in a weird getup. Without her, I would have been injured, maybe dead. Can you describe this woman? She's tall with a body like a supermodel. I loosely described my appearance when transformed, adding in a few wrong details so it wouldn't seem I was too familiar with it. Myra's eyes lit up while I was talking, and she gave a hint of a nod to Dario. I sure wish I could have met her, Rio said. Myra shot him a menacing glare. I didn't even notice her when I entered the stairwell, I said. Which was weird because there wasn't any place she could have hidden. Like, it's just the stairs going up and going down. I would have seen her approach me. But I didn't think about it at that time. I was just relieved I didn't die. Maybe it's just one of her powers. Why do you say she has powers? Dario said. Besides the appearing out of thin air, Myra said. I didn't say she appeared out of thin air. I just didn't notice her maybe. But it was pretty obvious she wasn't normal because of her mouth. Myra, maybe subconsciously, rubbed her injured neck. Should I ask her about her injury? Nah, too suspicious. I said, after pulling me away from the door, the woman opened her mouth. Like, I mean her mouth as in the mask thingy full of sharp fangs. That was her actual mouth. Like not a human mouth at all. She has a monster mouth. Maybe I don't want to meet her, Rio mused. Or maybe you said she has a hot body. Don't be a pig, Rio, Myra said, or I'll tell your girlfriend. Kidding. Man, can no one take a joke anymore? She's an Adumbrae anyway. I was terrified thinking she's with the man chasing me and she's going to attack me too. It didn't register in my mind at that time that she saved me. I was so sure I was super dead. If I went out the door, the man in black will skewer me, and if I stayed there, she'll bite my head off. But she didn't bite me, she bit herself. What? All of them said. I nodded fervently. She bit her own arm. I was so shocked when she did that. She let her blood flow to the ground. Then she pointed at me and pointed down. Next, she pointed at herself and up. She growled or something while doing that pointing thing. I'm sure she was trying to talk to me, but I couldn't understand because she couldn't speak with her monster mouth. I don't know what to call it. When she smeared her blood on the spikes, that was when I understood what she was trying to tell me. The blood trail on the floor, the blood on the spikes. She planned to make it look like I was hit and then lead the Adumbrae with spikes a different way. I see, Myra said, more to herself than to me. She was looking at the pool, chewing her tongue, deep in thought. How about the man? Dean said. Did you see him? He also entered the stairwell. He did, but I didn't see him. I descended the stairs and tried to open the door of the lower floor when I heard a crash above. I'm not sure, but I think that door got stuck because of the spikes he threw and he was trying to force it open. I was so scared I didn't even try to exit the stairwell. I just sat in a corner. I kept very quiet, covered my ears, and closed my eyes. I didn't move, I was praying the whole time he'd follow the woman. I still didn't budge when I heard him going up the stairs. It was the fire alarm that finally made me move. And then what? I was able to escape from the mall before the fire spread. Everyone was running out. I rushed back to my condo and hid inside until Dean called. I didn't know what to do. At first, I wanted to call the police, but I changed my mind. I mean, 2 incidents on the same day. With Myra's sister and the mall. What if the Adumbrae has started to infect me too? Do you know what happened to the woman with the monster mouth? I don't know. I never saw her after we parted ways in the stairwell. Do you know who she is? Dario shrugged. We don't. She really saved me back there. Obviously, she's not human, but she wasn't a bad, not sure if I can call her, person. Could she be like you? With supernatural powers but not a core brain or an Adumbrae? No, she's not like us, Dario said. There's only 5 of us in our group. 4 with powers, 1 who decided to stay normal. 4 of us are here. Johann, the normal guy, couldn't come. That woman is definitely an Adumbrae, Myra said. But she helped me. We still don't know her true intentions. That's one of the things we'd like to find out. How about the fire? Did the Adumbrae with spikes do it? It couldn't have been the woman. I hope it wasn't her. We also don't know anything about the fire, Everett said, perhaps too quickly, then he looked away. You guys set fire to the mall? If they did, then I had to thank them because they probably destroyed the recordings of the parking area security cameras. Or was that their intention? How about you? Did you see the woman or the Adumbrae trying to kill us? I asked Dario. No. When the Adumbrae went after you, we took Amber, Dean, and escaped in our car. We only knew about the fire when we were already out of the mall. That's going to be your story? They were saying they already left so they could disclaim any knowledge of the fire and push it on their imaginary enemies at the mall. Let's take more control of this conversation. Huh? You left, just like that? I said with utmost indignation, adding in a stamp of my foot. You just left while an Adumbrae was chasing me? I could have died. If the woman with the monster mouth didn't appear, then I really would be dead. Everett fidgeted uncomfortably in his seat and glanced at Myra beside him. She intently stared at the pool as if she couldn't hear us talking. Errand, Dean said, but she didn't continue her sentence. You said you guys have powers. Dario calmly answered, we do have pow. And you're fighting Adumbrae. Right? Right? So why did you leave me? Either they should be nominated for the Best Actors of 2020, or, based on their expressions, they truly felt guilty. I surmised it was all just Myra's own thing. Why weren't you able to stop the Adumbrae? I guess I better explain, Dario said. He fished a square leather object from his pocket. I thought it was his wallet, but I realized it wasn't when he opened it. It's because of this. The blue vials, I whispered. There were 3 of them inside the small leather packet. Just like what Myra gave us at Melcher. Ah, yeah, she mentioned she gave you some. There was no need, this would have barely any effect on you and Amber Dean. Myra grunted. Was just trying to be helpful. What are those? I said. They have scientific names for their formulas, but we just call them suppressors for simplicity. There's another set of vials colored red, the diluters. Need to keep them simple because Rio can't remember their names, Myra said. Ha ha ha, very funny, Rio said sarcastically. Sounds like we're talking about drugs if we refer to them like that. It's way better to be caught with drugs in our possession than these, said Dario. Their official names shouldn't even be known by the public. Someone might overhear us and one thing can lead to another and we'll be investigated for possessing something that's government top secret. We use the suppressor stuff to, well, suppress the source of our power as well as parts of our brain that connect to higher dimensions via the Gestalt subconsciousness of humans. I'll spare you the nitty-gritty details, but we basically use them to get past Adumbrae scanners and tests. Not only we do have special abilities, but we also have super strength and increased regeneration like Adumbrae. Like core brings, Everett said. Don't compare us to Adumbrae. Sorry, wrong choice of words. Yes, like core brings, we have superhuman bodies and we need the suppressor to hide it when necessary. The effect lasts for a few hours and we gradually get our powers back. For normal humans, not much effect. Dean waved her hand to join in. Myra said we could use it to pass tests in case we were affected by being close to an atom, Kelsey. Something about false positives. Technically, yes. It does suppress parts of the brain associated with establishing a connection with an Adumbrae, biochemicals, and electric signals. But this is more suited for our use. In your case, it wasn't necessary at all. The chances you were affected by that brief interaction are minuscule. False positives are possible, the brain is a complicated thing and science is still very far in unraveling its secrets. However, further testing would clear that up. It'll be a huge inconvenience, yes. Follow-up tests and records, but not worth even one of these rare and expensive suppressors. I recalled Myra mentioned she got the blue vials from her boyfriend. She meant Dario. They didn't seem to have a relationship. She told us a lie so we would trust her and take the suppressor thingy. Technically, it was a white lie. The twist was that she was really trying to help us. Myra wasted our limited supplies, Rio said. I already talked with her, Rio. She had good intentions, Everett said. Dario, I said, is that why you were injured and had to run away? You drank some suppressor. In my line of work, I always need to take it so I wouldn't get discovered. When I came to the mall, I could barely use my powers and I couldn't properly fight. That's how I got this injury that's still healing. If I didn't have the suppressor in my system, this would have healed in a few minutes. And it's also the reason why we ran away. Sorry. In our minds, at least we saved one person. We hoped you would have escaped, Everett said. I understand now, I said. Sorry, I overreacted. We're the ones who should apologize, Dario said. No matter what explanation I give, we did leave you behind. But isn't pretty dangerous that you can't use your powers for a few hours? Like what if you get ambushed? That's where the diluter comes in. It counteracts the suppressor, flushes it out of our system. It's not immediate, but better than nothing. Dario scratched the back of his head. I didn't have any diluter on me at that time. We don't have any right now. Because Myra took it? Was that how she was able to use her powers and also survive a fatal bite on her neck? She probably ingested some on her way to the mall. I recalled she jabbed herself with a syringe after I attacked her. Must have been more of the red stuff to help her heal. Again, I sincerely apologize, Dario said. You're right. We're fighting Adumbrae and we should have chased the one attacking you. Even though my abilities were restricted, that's no excuse. Sorry. Now, we're here to fix our mistakes. We're here to help. You explained what happened in the mall, now it's our turn to explain what's going on. Or try to explain, because we also don't know plenty of things. As Amber told you, we also don't know why you were attacked. We have our guesses, and maybe you'd have an idea after I give a background. Can you show me your powers first? I said. If that's what you want, Dario said. We already showed Amber our powers. I wasn't sure what the exact truth was, neither did I really care for it. However, I was certain they didn't want to silence Dean and me or dispose of us in some way because they already had many opportunities to do so. The deal with Myra seemed like a misunderstanding. So, what did they want? Their intention must be connected with my transformation. Otherwise, they just would have left Dean at the hospital or something. She was passed out anyway and just not bother with us. If they posed a threat to me, or more specifically, my transformed self, then I needed to have an idea of their strength. If they didn't, I still needed information because I was the one who'd be going after them eventually. Okay, everyone, Dario said, who wants to go first? Rio should go first, said Everett. Why me? He replied. Save the best for last. You guys go first. Delude yourself all you want, Myra said, but you're wasting time if you don't start your summoning now. Ah. Forgot about that. Go ahead and continue while I do my thing here calling my baby. He knelt on the ground. Nice, this carpet is soft. Looking up at the ceiling, he extended his arms out to his sides, palms facing upward, and began chanting words I didn't understand. Don't get weirded out, Erend, said Dean. Was he praying in a foreign language? Japanese? No, it didn't sound Japanese. I had no idea what he was saying, but it looked like the start of some ritual. To be honest, this isn't what I envisioned for a showcase of powers, I said. Everett said, powers of both core brings and Adumbrae aren't usually as clear-cut as shooting lightning bolts out of your fingertips like in the movies. What's yours then? I asked him. Mine is a bit hard to explain. What do you know of that famous formula, E=mc²? Only heard of it. I don't exactly know what it's about. I'm not a physicist by the way, but a simple explanation would be anything with mass has a huge amount of energy. The next problem is how efficiently can energy be extracted. Take a burger, for example. You can last for an entire day eating just one burger, but you'll be hungry and tired by night. That's because we are severely inefficient at extracting energy from our food. If there was a way to extract energy with even how about 50% efficiency from a burger, I'm sure you could destroy a block of buildings with it. Is that true? I said skeptically. That's an underestimation, Dario said. An average human contains energy equivalent to 90,000 times the power of the explosion of the first nuclear bomb used back in the Adumbrae War, the one dropped on Munich, the site of the first purple bloom. I'm sure the energy in a burger extracted at 50% efficiency can destroy more than just a few buildings. Everett said, I extract energy from what I eat, which we all do. The difference is that I can extract energy more efficiently. Seriously? You just eat a burger and then you can blow up a building? No, that's too much, he said, laughing. I'm just a tiny bit more efficient than a normal human digesting food, but not that efficient as to turn a burger into a bomb. With the energy I extract, I can focus heat around my body or on specific points. He held up his fist and the air around it started to shimmer, like the hot air over the pavement on a searing summer day here in California. Sorry, I didn't mean to give off that much heat. He smiled slyly at Dean. I do need to eat a lot to sustain my power. If I ran out of food, I'll start to digest myself. Think of ulcer, but way worse. Aren't you hurt by your own power? The heat? I'm heat-proof to an extent, he said. That's the second part of my power. How about Myra next? Dario said. Finally. What was she going to do so we wouldn't suspect her as our attacker? Yeah, sure, Myra said. Mine is simple enough. She took off the Melcher sweatshirt she wore, leaving only her sports bra on. I don't want to rip my clothes, she explained. Thank God this jackass is chanting. She jabbed her thumb towards Rio. Then she hugged herself and took a deep breath. I instinctively moved back a bit, belatedly disguising it like I was just curiously worried about Myra. Idiot, you shouldn't know she has the spiky power thingy, I scolded myself. Some sort of bark-like substance bled out of her skin, covering her upper body. It didn't form spikes but, instead, turned itself into a thick and formidable armor. Interesting. Was this her actual power and not just throwing spikes? Did she choose to cover her body in armor instead of growing spikes to trick us into thinking she wasn't the one who attacked us? But she didn't know I got a close look at her spikes. I even ate them. That was the same material, I was sure. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what were the chances I would meet another person who could make this bark-like material and had a friend who could burn things on the same day, within a span of a few hours? It's pretty straightforward, she said as she retracted her armor and put on her clothes again. I can cover my entire body with armor in any design I choose. Not just a simple armor, Dario said. It can be huge, like some of the bigger Comexos. That's hard to do now with some suppressor still swimming inside me. I was right, she was way underpowered when we met. If we fought head-on with her full power, things might have gone differently. As I thought of what I was going to say next, chills crawled down my spine and the hairs on my neck stood on end. Mournful singing flitted in the room, although I couldn't tell which direction it came from. I turned to Rio. His mouth emitted golden red light. There was mischievous laughter. It wasn't him laughing. It was as if someone full of helium laughed in a cartoonish voice. A small hand came out of Rio's mouth, followed by a plump body. A fat, pixie-like creature struggled to exit. With a great heave, it pulled itself out, flew through the air, somehow managing to do so even with its disproportionately small wings. It looked at all of us and laughed again in that creepy way. That's blubber, Dario said. Don't be scared, it won't harm you. Obey, I mean Rio, he can summon 4 fairies so far. And this is the fairy that can fight. Can we give it something to destroy? I got a pen, Myra said. She threw it to the red fairy. It caught the pen and chewed it to dust, literally, in 1 second. Blubber's nasty. It can chew through everything, bore through your stomach, and come out your mouth. Flesh or metal, it doesn't matter. It will chew through it. The fat fairy stuck out its tongue at her. In you go, Dario said. Go on, go back in. The fairy complied and squeezed itself back in Rio's mouth. After it returned to his body, Rio collapsed. Everett caught him and placed him on one of the chairs. He's usually like this after he finishes a summon. He'll come to in a few minutes. Dario turned to me. That leaves me. He took a fighting stance, adjusting his sling and bandaged left arm. He held his right fist in front of him. Throw a punch at me. Excuse me? I said. Punch me with all your strength. Is something bad going to happen to me? Nothing bad will happen. It's for a demonstration of my power. Okay then, I said. I don't know how to fight though. Control your strength, I thought. I was very aware of how much stronger I had gotten. I swung my fist at Dario with as much strength as I thought old Erend would have. Undoubtedly an experienced fighter, he easily caught my fist. Dario, my man, you could have just explained your power. Is Erend going to be fine? What? I mumbled. Bright light. I blinked my eyes. Many people around me. What happened? Where was I? She's already awake. That was fast. You shouldn't have done that, Dario. I controlled my power. And don't forget I still have the suppressor in me. There's no need to get all worked up. Erend? Are you okay? A woman's voice. It's disconcerting the first time it happens. This time, a guy was talking. Talking to me. I looked at the person who spoke. A handsome man with blue eyes. A bandaged arm. Was he injured? Wait a minute. He was called Dario, right? Codename something. What was it? Blank. All of the memories of the past hour or so came back. The F, what's going on? I barely stopped myself cursing. Everything was still blurry and I couldn't concentrate on a face. Less than 5 minutes, Myra said, checking her watch. Awesome job even though it was just a small poke from Dario. When he first tested that on Rio, he stared at the sky for 15 minutes. Or he was just coked out of his mind. Hard to tell the difference. Everyone, laugh at Myra's joke, quick, Rio dryly said. I swear, Dario didn't hold back that time. I apologize for that, Erend, Dario said. They're right, maybe that was too much. I'm fine. Just caught off guard. Dario performed some martial moves as he explained, I am physically weak, stronger than a normal human, but especially weak in the world of superhumans. This is why I have to strategically use my power. Surprise the enemy. You didn't have to surprise her with it, Rio said. Dean rubbed my back. How are you feeling, Erend? I'm fine I guess. My wariness levels lowered. I was now 100% certain they had no intention of killing us. If they did, Dario could have incapacitated Dean and me, and killed us right then and there. Dumb move, Erend. This was very dangerous coming here. But I just couldn't resist myself. Hey, this is my first time in this situation, give me a break. My kind did suck when assessing the danger in a situation. I was still alive, so no problemo in the end. Their little show made me realize I couldn't take on all of them at the same time. But I didn't need to. The only one I intended to kill was Myra. How about Everett? He did try to burn me. Scratch that. He unintentionally cleaned up my trail at the mall with the fire he caused, burning my bloodied shirt I left there. Same with Dario. He did try to help me, but he couldn't stop Myra from going after me. Purely from an application of rule number 4 standpoint, killing them both was uncalled for. They did bother me, so penalties still had to be meted. It wasn't a simple case of beating them up when I get the chance. That was a stupid form of punishment and they could take revenge on me after. Rio, I had no personal grievance with. As for Dean, I didn't want to drag her into this. That'd violate rule number 4. Both of us were innocent bystanders that got dragged into this mess against our will. Poor us. Granted. This is all too much to take in, I said. I never imagined in my entire life I would get attacked by an Adumbrae. When I was hiding in my condo before Dean called, I was thinking I just could move on with my life, just keep quiet. We can't turn back time, Dario said. Like it or not, you're part of this world now. Harsh, man, Rio said. Could have cushioned that a bit. I should know about this world I was dragged into, I said. I sniffled, threatening to burst into tears. What do you idiots want with me anyway? Dean noticed it and put her arms around me. I think Erend is now ready to listen to your story, Dario. Then she directed me to a seat and went to fetch me a glass of water. Such an awesome friend. Even if it turned out the fate of the world hung in the balance, like some cliché action movie, it wouldn't matter to me. All I wanted was information I could use to protect myself, and information to formulate a fitting penalty for Dario and Everett, as well as to find a good way to kill Myra. The rules must be upheld no matter how long it took. Rules above all. What do you know about Corbrings? Dario said. You and Amber are both students at Alois University, so you must know about them. I just know as much as the average person, I said. Information about their actual workings isn't exactly widely known. The hidden headquarters of all Corbrings is called the Hive. I don't know where that is. I also only have a general idea of their structure. The Corbring initiates have weapons made from the mother core, their core quips. Even though they haven't absorbed a core into their bodies, just by wielding these weapons, they are bestowed with superhuman bodies that could match someone with AUGs or wearing comexos. When they absorb a core into their bodies, they are then called melded Corbrings, or just Corbrings. There are the overseers that manage the Corbrings and the workings of the Hive. And there are the High Overseers, the most powerful of them all, who are awoken only in extreme cases. That's about it. Even if Alois University and Cresthorn Law are geared towards the field of Adumbrae, we rarely deal with Corbrings directly. Our professor even said he doubted if one of us would ever get the chance to meet a Corbring face to face. How about where they came from? Dario said. The Mother Core. The Adumbrae War after the Second World War. A history exam. I grinned half-heartedly, pretending like I was trying to compose myself. I can't recall the exact year, but in the middle of World War II, some Nazi experiment broke through the higher dimension somehow and we got noticed by the Adumbrae. And they're now trying to get our bodies through our Gestalt subconsciousness, I said, adding in what I learned from Professor Deslies. World War II abruptly came to an end as we got lots of purple blooms all over the world, spewing out monsters like the one they spotted roaming around Madagascar right now. Multiple cores cropped up all over the world around that time too, giving people superpowers to fight the Adumbrae monsters rampaging everywhere. I've read many theories on what those cores are or where they came from, but I don't know anything definitive because Corbrings keep that a secret. Anyway, the first Corbrings brought these cores together because they are, I think, fragments of something bigger. These origin cores formed the Mother Core, and the Mother Core chooses who gets a core and becomes a Corbring. That's about all I know. Is that correct? Yes, Dario said. The Mother Core is the source of the power of the Corbrings. He glanced at Everett for a moment before speaking again. And to complete the background of our story, what do you know of the Labor Day Purge? The Labor Day Purge? I stared at the ceiling, gathering what I could remember about it. That was like, over 40 years ago. It was about government experiments or something, right? Adumbrae and the government politicians, people in high places carried out experiments using government resources which were eventually uncovered. Everett said with a strained voice, first Monday of September 1973, those abominations gathered thousands of their supporters on Capitol Hill to protect themselves, mostly ordinary people who didn't know what was going on. They didn't even transform or use their powers. Just made a human shield out of all the people they managed to fool. I recall documentaries about it, I said. The army was trying to find ways how to differentiate who was the enemy and who was not. They couldn't attack. The Corbrings didn't care about any of that. They swooped in and killed everyone they could find, Everett said. My grandparents were killed on that day, and my father, still a teen, had a hard time afterward. The stigma of being associated with the supposed traitors of humanity compounded with being the son of an immigrant. I understand why the Corbrings did that. But not one of the Adumbrae even transformed. The Adumbrae didn't transform because they intended to retain their human consciousness, I said. If they transformed, they'd lose themselves, fully turn into berserking monsters. They probably realized it was over when the core-brains showed up and decided to die in their human forms. Are you sympathizing with them? Like a core-brain, Myra said. With that, I'm proceeding to our present situation. Dario took out something from the pocket, a small silver box. I'm now going to show you something neat. Neat and illegal, Rio murmured. Dario placed the box on the table and tapped it with his finger. It glowed and gradually became transparent, revealing a curious object suspended in the middle of it. Take a closer look. I knelt beside the table and bent down to examine it. It was something organic, reminding me of an embryo in its early stage of development. About the size of my fingernail, it pulsated, as if alive, in sync with the light flowing out of it. Maybe it was alive. Looks so weird. What is it? An artificial core, Dario said. I blinked. Excuse me. Like a core of a computer or... He pressed the cube again and it went back to its opaque silver color. Best to hide it. If it's not melded with anyone, core-brains can detect it just like a real one. We'll be dead before we know it if the core-brain hive is made aware of what we're doing. Excuse me. I repeated, with real incredulity this time. Like a real one? What do you mean? Like a real core from the mother core? Like the cores inside core-brains? Yes. How is that even possible? Like without the mother core? It does need material from the mother core. Dario nodded. Many governments, organizations, secret or otherwise, have tried to get to their hands on a core, and have succeeded. Maybe a core-brain got killed by an Adumbrae and they managed to get the body before it got eaten by the monster. Or they ambushed a core-brain to get a core. But it is impossible to hold it long enough to try to synthesize an artificial core. The hive will know where the stolen core is hidden and send their big guns to get it back at any cost. Which was the reason why Project QR-Zephyr went with the Adumbrae route in making super soldiers. The government didn't want direct conflict with the hive. There's a new top-secret project, I said, taking a guess. Making artificial cores. They somehow found a new way to do it, not going the Adumbrae way, and succeeded. Correct. There is a new program on making super soldiers that could rival core-brains. Backed by the government, Everett said. Again. Yes, a new top-secret government program carried out by the BID. Or, more specifically, Division Proxy within the BID. The reason for the experiment's revival was that the BID somehow got its hands on an origin core, the ones that formed the mother core at the start of the Adumbrae War. Only this one wasn't able to join the mother core. I don't know how that happened, or where they got it. However, since it never became part of the mother core, the core-brains couldn't detect it. And that's why Division Proxy could do their experiments in peace. They also carry out their experiments in labs. They're using dozens of human test subjects, but they don't experiment on the public like Project QR-Zephyr. Which is still bad, by the way, Myra said. Yes, it's bad, Dario said, annoyed. But we can't stop those perhaps in the future. Not now. We have talked about this. I assume you guys are the result of this experiment? I said. With your powers and all this stuff? Did you escape from the lab or something? Rio shook his head. Not exactly. And no, we didn't escape anywhere. Dario explained, we are getting a repeat of the events leading up to the Labor Day purge. You see, an Adumbrae has infiltrated Division Proxy. He's using the resources of Division Proxy to test on the people of this city among other places. At least, that's what the professor told us. The professor is one of the lead researchers of Division Proxy, and he's the one who discovered that one of them became an Adumbrae. He suspects there are many Adumbrae in Division Proxy as well as the upper echelons of the BID, which was why he couldn't just report it. The Adumbrae are using criminal organizations engaged in the illegal Adumbrae trade, funneling resources and information from Division Proxy, to accomplish their goal of finding a way to retain their human minds while gaining more and more power. Essentially, the same goal as the Adumbrae involved in the Labor Day purge. The professor gathered us, and each of us has our own reason to fight the Adumbrae. And that is how we have our powers. He provides us with artificial cores, information, and other materials we may need in our missions. To what end? I said. Why don't we report this to the police? I guess that would be difficult if there are Adumbrae in the government. How about exposing this to the media? Wasn't that how Project QR-Zephyr got revealed to the public? Let's bring this to the media. We got proof. Needless to say, I didn't want them to actually do that because that would land me in trouble too. I was simply giving the reasonable response of a normal person. That's the problem, Dario said. The core brains will know the government has an origin core and that they're making their own artificial core brains. This wouldn't be just about the Adumbrae anymore. The Hive will take this as a declaration of war. This will be way worse than the Labor Day purge. You're right. And the government will not just give up the origin core and stop this project. So, it is in our best interests the Division Proxy project continues in secrecy. Unfortunately, the Adumbrae within Division Proxy is doing its experiments out in the open. Our group has two ultimate goals. Not only do we want to stop the Adumbrae experimenting on the public for obvious reasons, we also don't want Division Proxy to be exposed, thereby preventing war between the US and the Hive. It's a really difficult situation, Everett said. But what has this got to do with the two of us? I said, gesturing to Dean and me. I know all of this is important, don't get me wrong, but I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't do anything for Adumbrae to attack us at the mall. Is it because of Kelsey? That might be the case, Dario said. We suspect they took Kelsey. They? Myra tried to stand, but Dario put his right hand on her shoulder. She stopped with her mouth wide open as if she was about to start speaking. Then she closed her mouth, blinked a few times, and looked around in a daze. Dario pushed her back down on the armrest of Everett's. Myra sat still for a few seconds, then recognition lit her face. Why did you do that? She said to Dario. Relax, Myra, he said. Let me handle this. He turned to me. There's this criminal organization connected to the Adumbrae in Division Proxy run by two brothers, Mark and Big Marcy. We have fought them on several occasions, trying to stop their operations in this city. They might have taken Kelsey, then sent someone to kill the two of you because you might know something about Kelsey, even if you don't. Whoa. Hold on. There were no other people involved in that incident at the mall beside us here in Dean's house. No people from any criminal organization whatsoever. I think I see what was going on. There was this misunderstanding with Myra, whatever that was supposed to be. Then boom. A mysterious woman with a monster mouth, Pretty Little Me, appeared and attacked her. Assuming Dario's story was true, they probably suspected my transformation as one of their enemies. So, they wanted to keep Dean and me close. They either sincerely wanted to protect us or suspected we were connected with their enemies. Personally, I think it was the first possibility. So what now? I asked. For one reason or another, you have been targeted by the Adumbrae. We don't know why. But what we can offer you is protection and a chance to gain some powers of a core brain. I don't understand. Would you accept the power and join us in our fight against the Adumbrae? The hell? Yeah, no, thank you. I don't want this. I trembled, about to cry again. I needed to bail out of here. Enough of accepting strange shit from strangers. And if it was indeed an artificial core, wouldn't that be dangerous for me to accept because I was an Adumbrae? Aaron, Dean said. It's just that I realized my normal life is over. I bent down and started fake crying. It was hard to cry when I could barely stop myself from laughing out loud. This is all just misunderstanding upon misunderstanding. They wanted me to join them to fight my transformed self. Come on, this is stupid. I didn't need anything here. I didn't need anything from them. We don't know when they'll strike again, Dario said. Maybe she's afraid of what will happen when she melds with it. Rio said. Everett cleared his throat. This is a big decision, Dario. For both Aaron and Amber. I need to explain it some more. No, this can't be true. I yelled. I stood up and pushed Dean away from me. I refuse to accept this. I think we may need some time, Dean said, trying to calm me down. I don't need time. I stepped away from her, shaking my head. Sorry for the drama. I need a quick reason to get out of here. You continue with your superhero stuff while I plan how to carry out rule number 4. I couldn't care less if war broke out between the US and the Corbrings. I was supposed to graduate law school, get a job, start a family. I don't want to fight monsters and play the hero. Ouch, that stings, Rio said. Not the time, Rio. Myra stood up. Was she going to stop me? I'm leaving, I declared. Dario stepped forward. Danger. Don't touch me. I screamed with all my might. He was surprised and stepped back. I may have looked stupid, but it was a knee-jerk reaction. I didn't want him near me as I had no idea of the range of his power. Don't use your stupid powers on me. Aaron, please, Dean said. Think about it. I'm out of your stupid superhero team. Save the world all you want. Don't bother my life. I stormed out of Dean's house, and they didn't stop me. Peace out, guys. My phone buzzed, announcing the sunrise as it did each day. I glanced towards the ocean. The black spire was in the distance, greeting the sun, its imposing shadow treading the blue floor, making its daily journey to the shore. The broken window wall was already fixed as if no human in the process of turning into a monster crashed through it the day before. A "Don't lean on the glass" sign was the only thing different, an indication something went wrong here that warranted it. Just how wrong, the students who eat here would never know. I pressed the cold surface of my stainless steel water bottle against my forehead, hoping it would alleviate my constricting headache. It didn't. The bottle was new, along with my bag, pens, notebook, other things I bought yesterday to replace my stuff that got burned. I was desperate for anything that would stop my headache. It felt like my head was held in a vice grip, slowly getting tighter. Painkillers weren't any help, and my stash of various types of tea at home had no effect. The caffeine probably made the headache worse. I opened the bottle and drank its contents. Watermelon and cucumber smoothie with honey, something I saw on the internet that could supposedly help with migraine. Yes, I was that desperate. The taste wasn't so bad. My skin felt gummy from lack of sleep, and I had to put a tad more makeup than usual to bring color to my unusually pale face. With superhuman healing, shouldn't I also be impervious to headaches? Apparently not. My meeting yesterday with Dario and his friends, those weirdo superhero wannabes, kept replaying in my mind. That was one of the reasons I stayed up all night, and even now I was still thinking about it. Other people did it too, right? When something big happened in their lives, just keep on replaying it. The danger, the risk, it was fun. Idiotic. I scolded myself not to be like that. Logic sometimes flew out the window when I found something fun. The other reason I didn't get any sleep was I sort of expected to get attacked in the middle of the night. It was possible Myra changed her mind and decided to finish me off. I was lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling, ready to summon my mask and fight. Or flee if need be. I wasn't actually confident I could take on Myra without surprising her. She didn't come. I was more disappointed than a kid who stayed up all night waiting for Santa, only to find out it was his parents all along. Dean didn't even call me. I thought she would maybe try to comfort me or something. So, yeah, I had a headache for nothing. I still couldn't get over how funny everything was. They, Dario's group, thought my transformed self was their enemy and now they wanted me to join them. Or, they wanted to observe me in case I was connected with their supposed enemy. Stupid shit. This morning, I watched my surroundings on my way to school if anyone was following me, but I didn't find anything suspicious. Maybe there was no reason for me to worry at all. They should just carry on with their heroic deeds and leave me alone. I mean, leave me alone so I could think of a plan to kill Myra and punish Dario and Everett. What if, yesterday, I waited for Myra to come out of Dean's house, followed her home, and then killed her? Could I pull it off? I wasn't sure. Myra had experience in fighting, and she was regaining her strength, compared to me who didn't know shit about fighting with powers. Or fighting at all. Should I practice then? Such a hassle. This was going to be the most effort I put into implementing rule number 4 ever. I took another sip of my smoothie. I just should have brought tea, I muttered. Shuffling my feet, I went to the window, as was my morning routine, to watch the sunrise before going back to studying. And what about their story of the Adumbrae doing sinister stuff in the city? What if that was true? I felt I needed to care about that, but I just couldn't muster the will to do so. Just leave it to the government or the Corbrings to sort it out. The world was still in one piece. The track record of Corbrings in keeping the world safe was stellar so far. My focus should be on keeping my secret safe, not worrying about other shit. Ahem, the sound of someone clearing their throat was amplified by the deathly silence of the cafeteria. I knew this voice. Knocking by the cafeteria door followed. The door was far away from me, but because of the silence, the knocks eerily echoed. Dean smiled at me from the cafeteria entrance. I was so lost in my thoughts I didn't even notice her opening the door. A light gray pantsuit hugged her body, highlighting her curves, making me a bit envious for a moment. But I remembered my transformation's hotness meter was out of this world. Except for the mouth. I wasn't sure if guys would go for me in my transformed state if they knew I had a monster mouth. I think many guys still would. Hello, Amber, Dean said. It felt wrong walking into the cafeteria without your acknowledgement. This is your sanctuary, after all. She unslung her LRYS leather bag, sat in front of me, and placed her bag on the chair beside her. What am I? The guardian of the cafeteria? I suppose you are. Dean chuckled. It's rare to see you deep in thought. Considering the events of yesterday, I think I get a pass to be in deep thought. Dean placed her elbow on the table, propping her chin. She stared into my eyes. You're very interesting, you know that. Interesting in what way? I said with veiled suspicion. You're an introvert. You don't really like social situations, mostly avoiding them. I noticed that, you know. Yet, you're very adept at interacting with people, not socially awkward at all. I know being an introvert doesn't mean a person is socially awkward, but you just seem to know what to do, what to say in any situation. Everyone likes you. A very hard feat. I seriously can't think of anyone who doesn't like you. Many people don't like me. Don't say that. I know when someone doesn't like me. It comes with the exposure. And the looks. And the looks, yes, she agreed. She paused for a bit then frowned. Hey, we're talking about you. Where was I? You're shy, and I don't mean that in a bad way. A passive personality. On the other hand, you were audacious enough to pull that stunt in Professor Gallagher's class. I'm not brave enough to do that. Are you complimenting me? I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be happy with your perception of me. I'm saying there are so many layers to you. You even saved me in the parking area. Others would have just ran away. Not you. You picked up a fire extinguisher and attacked that creep. You're just saying that so I won't feel bad about it. No. I really want to thank you for that. I mean it. Most people might not give you a second glance. Wow. I'm so sorry I'm not as attractive as you, I said with an exaggerated tone. I grinned to show her I was kidding. Go on, Miss Prom Queen. Not to brag, but I was prom queen, Dean said with a smirk. I wasn't surprised by that fact. I was saying while you're not in the spotlight, you're a way more interesting person than me. If only she knew how right she was, but she might be surprised why I was not like other girls. I still had no idea where this was going. I sloshed around my watermelon cucumber concoction. Keeping silent encourages the other person to continue talking and elaborate, especially if they were hesitating with saying something. After several seconds of silence, Amber Dean continued, my future is already determined. When kids are asked what do you want to be when they grow up, they say they want to be successful, without even fully knowing what that means. I'm the answer to that question. It might be too haughty for me to say this, but I cannot fail. I don't mean something bad will happen when I fail, or I'm forced not to fail. I cannot fail, because I really can't. I will succeed in life. I have the brains and beauty, the social skills, the charisma, the connections. I plan to eventually run for the law student government and become student council president. After I graduate, my family has the money and connections to put me in high places, even over others who may be more qualified than me. Why are you telling me this? I said. Did you have like a life flashing before my eyes moment yesterday and it put your life in perspective? Let me finish, Dean snapped. I raised a brow. Sorry, she hastily said, embarrassed. I was saying I have a straight path going up. I have a ladder. Effort and hard work are needed, but if I just prop the ladder to the top, I can just climb and reach it someday with certainty. And that's a bad thing. I already know my future. The proverbial top of the world. It would have been great if knowing my future was because of the power of clairvoyance. But it's not. My life is too predictable. Sad, really. That came to me yesterday. Wait, I said, drawing out saying the word as I processed what Dean was getting at. No way, I whispered as everything clicked inside my head. Was this the reason why Dean was strangely composed when I met her and the weirdo gang yesterday? You didn't. Dean didn't answer me. She rummaged around her bag and took out a cutter, a small one like what I used when I was a kid doing school projects. I can't do this to myself, but can you do it for me? Just a small cut will do. No way, I repeated, truly disbelieving what was happening. I was so surprised it drove my headache away. I accepted the cutter. Really? No way. Dean presented her finger. Just a small cut. Oh my God, you accepted the artificial core. I said, lowering my voice towards the end. Go on, she said. I wanted to check but I was too chicken to cut myself. Please, errand. Okay then. I placed the edge of the cutter on her finger and then gently pulled it down. It didn't cut. You have to press harder. It's hard to injure me now. Fine, but don't cry if it really hurts, I said. She assured me she wouldn't. I pressed the blade down on her skin, gradually adding more strength until I sensed the slight snap of skin breaking. Then I dragged the cutter across her skin. A line of red appeared, oozing a minuscule amount of blood. It promptly sewed itself back together again, good as new. Dean wiped her finger. No more blood came out. I guess it worked, she said. Are you insane? I hissed. I can't believe what you've done. I wasn't expecting Dean to join them. She was law-abiding and a rule stickler, that was my read on her. She was the furthest person I would have guessed to even try something as illegal, and as permanent, as this. It hurt my pride I misjudged someone. Errand, you don't understand. I felt this was the right thing to do. I chose to go here, at Cresthorn, to pursue a career in the field of Adumbrae defense. Do my part. Help out in the fight against Adumbrae. Make myself count. That was then. Now, I have an actual way to fight the Adumbrae. Even if we graduate here and get a job in the bid, we won't be really fighting Adumbrae. Maybe I'll just be managing an office. Or my parents will force me to take over our business because my older sister isn't too keen on it. But this way I count. I count in the fight against the Adumbrae. I can do something with my own hands, with my own power. Where is it? I whispered, referring to the artificial core. I didn't expect this insanity from Dean. You have it right. Dean looked around the cafeteria, confirming its boring emptiness. She began to unbutton her high-collared shirt, revealing a sports bra. Myra taught me this trick, she said, noticing my puzzled look. She pulled down the middle of her sports bra to reveal her ample cleavage and the artificial core. It rooted over her sternum, a small fingernail-sized growth on her otherwise flawless skin. They told me it won't grow past this size. I had to place it here, they said. Something with its connections with the flow of energy in our body. I didn't really understand Dario's explanation. The sports bra is added protection for hiding it in case I'm in a situation I had to change clothes with someone around. But I think it'd be better if I could conceal it more with makeup or a fake skin patch. This doesn't make any sense, I said, more to myself. This threw out my theory that Dario's group wanted to get close to Dean and me to get information that could lead to their enemy. No way they'd give out artificial cores like free food samples at the mall even if they wanted to gain our trust. They truly wanted us to join them in their secret fight. It makes perfect sense, replied Dean, misunderstanding me. With this, we can help save the world. We can do our very best in law school, be the very best at our job in the future, get promoted to the highest positions, but that will never, ever, ever, ever come close to having actual powers. Powers that can make a difference. I gritted my teeth in frustration. I was frustrated with myself. I was way far off with my assessment of Dean. Marks against me. Grrr, I always get so irritated if I was wrong with something I was so sure about. I had to update my assessment of her. I knew what was going to follow. What powers did it give you? I don't know. Bzzzzz. We both jumped as my phone vibrated. I'll be late for class, Dean, I said, checking my phone. We had different classes today. I looked her into the eye and said, I know you're trying to convince me to join you. And the answer is no. I stood up and walked out of the cafeteria before she could button back her clothes and follow me. I should prepare myself to get pestered by Dean in the coming days. Mens rea, meaning guilty mind, is the element of a crime involving the mental state of the individual. Professor Bance's droning voice lulled the class to sleep. Continuing his lecture at a monotone pace, he seemed oblivious to several students slowly nodding off, drifting between consciousness and the sweet slumber I was denied last night. It is based on the standard test for criminal culpability. Actus reus non facit reum nisi mens sit, or, the act is not culpable unless the mind is guilty. There needs to be criminal intent for one to be criminally liable. I was lucky Professor Banza rarely asked questions in class, and if he did, it was voluntary, unlike other professors who picked students to answer. I wasn't in the mood to listen in class, much less recite. Same with Professor Gallagher's class. I also had a plan to place myself on the top part of the hierarchy of students for this class without stepping on anyone's toes. I'd study way ahead in the syllabus, looking up terms and concepts I came upon not connected to our basic subject, and then wait for an obscure question only I could answer. This was the best way to appear more intelligent than I actually was. But then again, I guess studying ahead was something an intelligent person would do. If that didn't work out, like if it was a slow day, I planned to ask questions that would make me sound intelligent. Although I had to be careful going this route as I could very easily come off as annoying to my classmates. At the moment though, I didn't know whether I should care about that anymore. Having the power to bite off the head of everyone in class placed things in perspective. I wouldn't do that, of course. I'd be hunted down and killed by bid agents soon after. I'm just saying it's a different feeling knowing I can kill everyone in this room. Professor Bansa said, that is the general rule, and as legal systems evolved, exceptions were made. There are crimes involving negligence and reckless actions, the most common of which are vehicular accidents causing damage. Unless proven otherwise, we can assume most people do not intend to crash into a person or property. Another exception are strict liability crimes where the intent is immaterial as the law only looks as whether a prohibited act was committed. "Excuse me, Errand," my classmate beside me said, breaking my dangerous fall to the sleep I craved. "Is something wrong with your hand?" My eyes widened for a split second as I realized what I was doing. I was absent-mindedly scratching the small crystal growth on my palm with my thumb. The skin-tone pimple patch I used to cover it was already crumpled and loosening. I closed my fist. I accidentally cut my hand while chopping vegetables yesterday. A small, shallow wound. Nothing to worry about. I was just trying to remove the scab. I grinned shyly as if embarrassed. "Sorry, that's a gross thing to say." "I'm not going to be grossed out by that." He flashed a winning smile to reassure me. Romello Staton, a 1L like me. We became classmates only this second semester. He was a mini-celebrity because he came from an impoverished family, none of which had gone to college before, and got accepted at the prestigious Cresthorn Law. He was also the recipient of many awards, including a medal from the White House. On top of that, he even co-founded a non-profit organization helping the mental health of his fellow African Americans in low-income areas to reduce the risk of Adumbrae seeding. This guy's CV was loaded. "Do you cook at home?" he asked. "No, I was chopping vegetables for fun," I thought sarcastically. But instead, I said, "Yes, I cook." I sat up straight and looked intently at Professor Bassa, hinting that the conversation was over. I tried to smoothen the pimple patch on my palm. "That's awesome. I also love to cook. Don't have time now though, law school just demands so much." He scratched his chin, slightly embarrassed. "Ah, that. Well, all that news, I didn't want exposure or anything. But you know, I have to show underprivileged people like me that we can climb and rise to the top." Professor Bansa's coughing made Romello stop talking. He was coughing harshly on the microphone, with spit flying everywhere. He drank some water and went on with his lecture. On the subject of crimes committed by Adumbrae, there are several interpretations on how to classify them. Note that this is wholly different from the universal crime of betraying humanity. 1. We can view them as acts with criminal intent. This is, however, not a popular view as people with a collapsed Alois field have surrendered their ego, and the class went back to semi-hibernation. But not Romello. He talked to me again after a few minutes. "I noticed you bike going here every day. Sorry if I sound like a stalker. I'm not following you or anything." "Aha. We ride the same train." Again, not a stalker. "I get on a couple of stations before yours so I see you sometimes. You're always so focused on reading your notes with earphones on so I didn't bother you." "Yep, I put my earphones on when I don't want to be bothered," I said pointedly. "All right then," he replied. "Anyway, do you have a hard time carrying your bike up and down the station? I can help you." "Not really. I have a foldable bike." This guy was hitting on me. "Seriously? Calm down big guy, I can eat you whole. In a non-sexual way, mind you. A foldable bike. That's smart. I should trade in my bike for a foldable one. It's too bulky during peak hours on the train. Do you know of a place where I could trade in my bike?" No. This guy was seriously annoying. I had a lot to think about. Talking about bikes just reminded me of my toasted bike which I replaced yesterday. After leaving the meeting of superhero hopefuls, I went on a shopping spree to replace all my lost stuff, putting the money that was supposed to be my funds for hiding into good use. Maybe I should have been more careful and stayed at home, but I really wanted a foldable bike. That shut him up for a while, and we listened to Professor Bansa giving an overview of how Adumbrae crimes were classified and punished as opposed to normal crimes. I was committing a crime actually. The fact that I was an Adumbrae, or turning into one, was a crime in and of itself even if I didn't kill anybody. It was the universal crime of betraying humanity that Professor Bansa mentioned. A crime punishable by death. Death penalty wasn't legal in all states, but the execution of an Adumbrae was a separate matter. They weren't considered humans for one. And now, I wasn't one either. "Errand, do you have a class after this?" Romello said. "Yes, I have. I'm guessing you already know that." "Okay, you got me. Want to have lunch later?" "I don't have any more classes for the day, but I can wait for you." "What the hell? Wrong timing, big guy." I wasn't in the mood for entertaining people right now. I was about to reject him but then paused and thought about it. I was stressed because of all the bullshit going on. Just a bit, I found it difficult to feel full-on stress. More specifically, I hated that I lost some control over my life, being pushed around by hidden forces, Adumbrae this, core bring that, ugh. This might be the relaxation I needed. A return to form, return to something familiar, something I could control. "Professor, I have a question," a girl a couple of rows in front of me said, raising her hand. The whole class woke up from their stupor. There is a case, Robinson versus California, where the Supreme Court held that it is unconstitutional to punish a drug addict, the status of being a drug addict, even if the person was taking illegal drugs. How do we reconcile this with the status of an Adumbrae? "Good question, Ms. Roberts," Professor Bansa said. "Anyone care to try to answer it?" I knew the answer to this one. This was not the question I was waiting for where I could show off my knowledge, but this was enough for what I intended to do now. I raised my hand. "Miss Hartwell, go ahead." "Thank you, sir." The state of being seated by an Adumbrae is quite different from that of a drug addict, as the status of being an Adumbrae itself is dangerous. It's more akin to driving under the influence. Let's say a person is an alcoholic. Driving under the influence was a voluntary choice, even if crashing into a person or property is involuntary, and will thus result in criminal liability. As opposed to getting drunk and sitting in a stationary car. One's body turning into an Adumbrae is anything but a stationary car. Very good analogy, Miss Hartwell. Thank you for your answer. "Wow, you were listening," Romello said. "Unlike you," I said. He was coming on too strong, and if I accepted his invitation for lunch that easily, he would have the upper hand in any of our future interactions. My face was timid, but that didn't mean I couldn't be feisty if need be. That dissonance was attractive to men. They'd assume I was specifically confident with them while shy around others, making them feel special. "How can we, what were your words again? Climb and rise to the top. If we weren't listening in class." "You got me again," he said, smiling. "My offer still stands." I wasn't about to agree with him, stringing him along was fine. I could have lunch with him next week, or even next month. I was just happy I was in control of something again. "Can't. I have something to do. How about just accompanying me to the train station? Riding our bikes together? That is if you could wait for me even though we're not going to have lunch." His face lit up. "That's fine, yeah, sure. Riding together is fine. No rush. Yeah, maybe we could have lunch some other time. See you after my consti class then." I felt calmer throughout constitutional law, and the class finished without any incident. The new world I was forcefully thrust in, the world of Adumbrae, of superpowers, of conspiracies, of government experiments, was straight out of the movies. I was out of my game here. But it didn't mean I should lie down and get stressed out of my mind because there were things I couldn't control, like staying human. Romello was waiting for me by the racks, and we rode our bikes side by side until the train station, which was about 15 minutes away by bike from the entrance of Alois University. Romantic, I know. I was on auto mode, answering his questions, keeping the conversation going with random bullshit topics like professors we hated, the fire at Sanders Mall, our grades, plans for the future, and all sorts of other crap. When we got to the station he said, "Since we're here anyway, I think I will just go home as well." Really? You have nothing else to do? Have lunch with your friends? No, but maybe we can have lunch at a restaurant near the station you get off. Sorry, I was planning to eat while finishing work at my condo. He nodded, disappointed but trying to hide it. It's fine. There's always a next time. I will still accompany you though. This was all calculated, of course. Earlier, before he could suggest a different time we could have lunch, I suggested he accompany me to the train station instead. Naturally, he'd agree to that. I sighed in contentment as I folded my bike. Controlling people in subtle ways like this always brought a smile to my face. It was a win-win situation anyway. I was sure Romello was also happy thinking he made progress with me. No harm done. Aaron, don't make it too obvious, but look at that car, Romello said, nodding to a light gray sedan parked on the corner, probably a Mayfair. Did you notice it earlier? I think I saw it on the way here. It was an unfamiliar car to me. Are you sure? Maybe it was some other car. I'm sure I saw it a couple of times. What do you mean? Like it stopped and waited for us to pass and then followed us again? That does sound dumb. You're right, maybe I saw a similar car. That model is common. Why would someone follow us anyway? That would have been my reaction a couple of days ago. But not anymore. Annoyance started to creep back in. Should I drag him into this? Let's go, Aaron. I can carry your bike for you. Wait. Don't worry about it. I can carry both our bikes. I grabbed his sleeve as he walked ahead. Wait, Romello. I have to tell you something. I think you're right, we might be getting followed. Are you being serious, right now? Romello huffed as he carried his bike by his right side and my bike by his left. He did his best not to bump other people as we made our way through the station. I'm not sure if that car was actually following us. But it did look like it. I'm serious, I said, drizzling frustration and worry in my voice. I wondered if I was imagining things, but I noticed some people following me yesterday. Following both me and Amber Dean. You know her, right? Everyone knows Amber. I didn't know her second name is Dean. Anyway, I think this has something to do with Kelsey. Kelsey? I overheard people talking about it yesterday. Something about jumping out the cafeteria window. And she's missing? I wasn't sure if it was true or not. She's my classmate in a couple of subjects. Haven't seen her in class for a few days. It's true, I said. Dean and I were there when it happened. We saw Kelsey break through the window and fall to the ocean. We came upon the train turnstiles. Oh, wait a bit. I passed my new tote bag over the reader. It recognized the Metrorail card I kept at the bottom and opened the waist-high gates. Pass me my bike, I said to Romello. I took it so he'd have an easier time going through. Who could be following me? Dario's group, duh. I already knew their faces. I looked around to see if there was something amiss, but the crowd was so thick that anyone following us would have an easy time hiding. Dario did say they had one more member who wasn't present yesterday, if he was telling the truth. You were saying? Romello said. I motioned for him to come closer, and he leaned down. We think Kelsey was seated by an Adumbrae, I whispered. Romello raised his brow in disbelief. I explained. Before Kelsey ran to the window, she was saying she wanted to die a human. And after our international law class, Dean and I were tested at Melcher. I think there might be something going on here. We entered the train and stood in the aisle, grabbing the handrails. The train wasn't full and there were empty seats here and there. But Romello reasoned it was better to stand so we could clearly see the other cars if there were suspicious persons around. It was fine for me because I hated sitting beside people on public transportation. Who are these following you? Romello said. I have no idea. I said in an intentionally loud, shrill voice, then I covered my mouth. Sorry, I'm just super stressed right now. He hesitantly patted my shoulder, unsure of the boundaries between us. I said, the only reason I can think of why someone would have an interest in me is that I witnessed Kelsey's death. If this is the bid monitoring me, then they really don't need to lurk around. They can just nab me and perform tests on me. Correct, they have too much power under the Panderton Act. So, if not the government then they're most probably on the other side of the law. I don't know why anyone would want me though. The criminal underworld connected to the trade of illegal Adumbrae materials is vast, Romello said. We should go to the police and report this. Huh? I'm not going to do that. Why not? If you're apprehensive about approaching the police, I can ask help from my uncle, he said. He's not my actual uncle, but I consider him to be one. He's with La Esperanza PD and one of the people who helped me set up my foundation. But can we trust him? I moved closer to him, looking up, meeting his eyes, and doing my best helpless damsel impression. I don't know. Yeah, we can trust him, Lieutenant Jeremiah Hall. I'll introduce you to him. Okay, I'm going to get really honest here, and I hope you won't judge me, but I'm scared of getting in touch with the police or the authorities, especially the bid. Like what if something bad, as in an Adumbrae bad way, happened to Kelsey? And I'm going to be caught up in that? No way. Romello nodded. I understand. It's so easy to be suspected of being connected to a person inflicted by the Adumbrae. Even if eventually cleared, the stigma of being associated with an Adumbrae remains. That's why I set up my foundation in the first place. He inhaled deeply and closed his eyes. Let me think for a bit. We fell silent, swaying back and forth a little as the train made its way to the next station. It was one of the older train lines in the city. I peeked at Romello's face, he frowned in serious thought. He kept on glancing at the train cars in our front and back. I don't think you should go home, he finally said. No, I replied. I have to go home and check on Mom. What if something bad happened to her? What? I didn't know. Call her. Tell her to get out of the house. The two of us should continue to my house. He noticed my glare. No. Not that, don't think of me that way. I don't have any bad intentions. What I meant is if bad people are following you, then most likely they know about your address too. But my mom. Or, even if they don't know where you live, you might lead them to her. Call her now. I took out my phone and dialed my mother's US cell phone number. Obviously, the call didn't get through as she was abroad. If I called her through the internet, then it would, but Romello didn't need to know that. Just like he didn't need to know I wasn't living with Mom. I increased the volume of my phone, the cold, metallic, computer-generated voice telling me my call couldn't connect brought fake horror to my face. At that point, Romello seemed to realize the seriousness of my fabricated situation. He took out his phone and began to dial what I assumed to be the police's number. I grabbed his hand. No, please don't, I said. Let's check on my mom first. Errand, we have to call the police now. Something might have happened to her. Please, I said, with tears forming on my eyes, my specialty. Help me get home safely first. If Mom isn't there, I promise to call the police. His fist tightened on his phone but he relented. Yes. I had my bait. I intended to meet whoever was following me. My money was on Myra. She probably changed her mind about killing me. Or perhaps she wanted to confront me about what I knew regarding the mysterious woman who attacked her. If I were in her shoes, I'd assume that woman was connected with the disappearance of Kelsey. If it was Myra, then jackpot. This must be the opportunity one was waiting for to kill her for trying to kill me. I just wanted Romello along for added security, perhaps by time while I transformed, or to distract Myra so I could surprise her with a fatal attack. And I wouldn't waste my chance this time. If it wasn't Myra, then I could extract information from them or something. Or just leave them alone because I didn't care about them. Oh well. Please let the person following me be Myra. Please be Myra. Pretty please. I was starting to get giddy from the excitement of biting someone. I couldn't forget about the strength of my jaws, how satisfying it was to chomp on flesh, on bone. Romello suggested we plan our route to my condo. He searched a map of my neighborhood on his phone and picked a path different from my usual. He also checked the traffic from Riano Station to the station near my condo to see if it was possible for the car following us to have beaten us there. It could. All in all, Romello was a pretty dependable guy. Good looking too. If this was a romance movie, we would end up together after getting away from the people following us. Maybe I should go out with him if we survived this encounter. Clarification. If he survived. I was sure he'd fight for me, a big chivalrous man protecting weak, poor me. He wouldn't last against Myra, no doubt. But I was banking on the fact that Dario's group didn't seem to be evil. Myra would probably hesitate to hit an innocent person. About a dozen people got off the train with us at the station. Romello wasn't even hiding that he was trying to find our followers, staring right at people's faces until they felt uncomfortable and backed away from him. There seems to be no one, I said, unfolding my bike. Maybe they stopped after seeing someone was, protecting me. Romello noticeably puffed his chest at my choice of words. We can't be too complacent. Let's go to your house. He suddenly snapped attention to his left and squinted his eyes. That's them. I think maybe, at the far end of the street was the hood of a car poking out. It was the same color and probably the same model, or not. I wasn't too familiar with cars. Let's follow your planned route, I said. I want to get home as soon as possible. Follow us. Come on, Myra, if you're there. Even if their car couldn't pass through narrow alleyways, they could easily catch us by going to my condo building, which was my intention. Home base advantage in case there was a fight. It was also easy to notice if someone followed me into a building. We entered a small alley beside the local Quality Mart, threading through trash cans, exiting at Madison Street. Then instead of following the sidewalk like I usually did, we cut through the parking area of a furniture store and jumped over the squat fence, taking a shortcut to San Pedro Bike Bridge where no car could follow us. We continued to Lowen Park and followed the winding footpath to the back of the West Lemons apartments. That was a nice change of view. I haven't been this way before and it was a pleasant path, relaxing even. I was in high spirits. It was always a good feeling to resolve a Rule Number 4 case. I didn't expect to be done this fast with Myra's case. Romello carefully peered out of the alley. My apartment building was right across the street. All clear, he said. No people around. A thought occurred to me. What if there was actually no one following us and this guy was just manipulating me? What if he just wanted to rape me or something, and made up this story so he could get in my room or invite me to his house? Sometimes when I get caught up thinking I was manipulating people, I couldn't notice if the tables have been turned. I should improve on that. I internally shrugged, maybe this was nothing after all. I could still test my powers on him. A normal human would be pretty easy to bite compared to Myra. What a weird day. We walked out of the alley, both of us pushing our bicycles. There were no people on the street. Two black SUVs rounded the corner of the block and barreled towards us, boxing us in. Their heavily tinted windows lowered and one hand from each window appeared, carrying a gun. I was too surprised to react. Romello stretched out his hands and threw himself in front of me. Fwhip, fwhip. Not bullets. Darts. Their tips stuck out of Romello's body at several points. I raised my hand, ready to summon my mask and transform. No. Not in broad daylight. And they didn't seem to want to kill us. The car doors opened and large men piled out. One of them pulled out a long, thick, black stick and jabbed Romello's side. He jerked and convulsed as the hulking man hit him. A stun gun baton. They only wanted to capture us. Stay still, little girl. You'll go to sleep soon, the purple mohawk man said as he stood up. What do you want from me? I said. Then I screamed, help. Help. Anyone, help us. But like yesterday, no one came to help. They loaded Romello into the back seat of their car and came for me. Rough hands grabbed my arms as drowsiness started to gnaw at my consciousness. The concrete loosened around my feet and they pulled me up. Would you look at that? They were actually telling the truth. Fortunately, it seemed they had no intention of killing me outright, so I decided not to transform and let them take me. It was my trump card and I should wait for the best time to use it. Since this purple parrot idiot had powers, then there could be others with superpowers too. Even the normal humans had guns. I'd lose if I fought now. My eyelids felt heavy, not unlike my feeling at Professor Bance's boring class. When I wake up, I better get answers to what's happening. I moaned as I came to, my mind in a haze. Dark with a sprinkling of light from the small holes dotting the high ceiling. I felt around me. Uneven concrete covered with dust, grime, and other things I'd rather not know about. Then I reached a piece of warm flesh. I quickly withdrew my hand. Squinting in the dim light, I recognized Romello's unconscious form. My strengthened body was probably why I woke up before him, or they drugged him more. Dunno. I poked him trying to wake him. I didn't speak because I didn't want to alert any enemy who might be nearby. Romello did not react, but I could see his chest moving as he breathed. How long were we out? Should I try to escape? They didn't bother to tie us, probably not expecting I would wake up this soon. There was a loud buzz and metal rattled. A motor groaned to pull up the metal slats of a large commercial garage door, the overhead type, letting more light creep in. The easily recognizable salty smell of the sea and my illuminated surroundings, which appeared to be a wide storage space of sorts, told me that we were held in a warehouse by the docks. The door was about halfway open when I decided it was best to pretend to sleep. I slumped back down and relaxed my body. Several footsteps, I couldn't make out how many they were. More than 3. Maybe 5. And clunky wheels, a trolley, or a pushcart carrying something heavy. "Boss, are you sure about this?" one of them said. "It's not about being sure or not," said a voice I recognized. The man with the purple mohawk, the one with powers. This was him. "As long as we don't go against anything big," Marcy said, "we're fine." "Understood?" "Yes, boss." "Now put that there. And wake these two up." The overhead doors rattled shut and a click of a switch turned on the lights in the warehouse. Someone stepped over me and bent down, his large shadow putting me under the shade. I kept my body relaxed even as a thick needle pierced my skin. I could only hope he didn't notice my body was more durable than a normal human's. They chatted as they waited for us to wake up. In turn, I was waiting for Romello to awaken so I could follow after him. Purple Mohawk and his men talked about deliveries and auctions, and all other stuff I couldn't understand. I kept on listening, trying to memorize as much as I could. There was something about games and scheduling them, and the VIPs that will come. Were they referring to underground pit fights? "Relax, lover boy. We didn't do anything to your girlfriend, Purple Mohawk said. We just put you both to sleep. Romello, I whispered as I pretended to regain consciousness. What's going on? And I'm not his girlfriend. I don't know. Seems like we got kidnapped by these people. I sat up and hugged my knees across my chest, making myself as small as possible. Who are you? I asked them timidly. Where are we? Who, what, where, add in when and why, and you have the 5 W's of basic information gathering, Purple Mohawk replied. Who? Well, you can call me Rofirio, one of the enforcers of an organization I can't tell you about. Next is, what? What's up with you guys? He laughed, and his henchmen, 3 muscular gun-wielding goons wearing heavy coats, reluctantly laughed with him. Don't be scared, Errand. I'm with you. Romello felt around his pockets and took out his phone. Huh. He tapped furiously at its screen. There's no point using that. Both of your phones, and any other electronic devices you may have on you, are fried. Thanks for asking the why question. He walked over to a large rectangular metallic container, about as large as twice my fridge at home. But let's go back to where first. You're near a body of water and far from help of any kind, so don't think about escaping. When is about 2.5 hours since we nabbed you earlier. And now to why. Rofirio pressed a few buttons on a panel on the side of the container. It hissed, the front part clicked open, revealing the sleeping monstrosity inside. I tried my best to fake scream. The hell? What is that thing? Romello exclaimed. He stood in front of me protectively as I cowered behind him. The thing inside was something I didn't expect to see. It was clearly once a human as it wore a tattered shirt with California 1904 foot emblazoned on it, whatever that meant, and frayed jean shorts. But not anymore, now a horribly misshapen freak show. Its arms were longer than a normal human's and of different lengths. One arm reached its thigh and the other its knee, both ending in hands that had way too numerous fingers. Its right leg had a couple extra joints and folded up in its container to be able to fit. The skin on its face peeled in several places, and pieces of its flesh had fallen off, showing crumbling bone beneath. Disgusting, right? Rofirio said. He pointed furiously at Romello. Don't go back to the question what and start another topic. Where were we? The question, why, boss? Why? I honestly don't know. Big Marcy only told us to get you, specifically that little girl over there. My eye twitched a bit as he referred to me. What do you want from us? I cried out, my voice breaking. I was pretty good at doing it intentionally. Let us go. Yeah, right. As if they were going to do that. Romello brought up his fists and dropped into a convincing fighting stance, hinting he had experience fighting. You're not going to get away with this. I have an uncle in the police. If I don't show up for our meeting this afternoon, he will suspect something's wrong, especially if he can't call me. The part about the meeting probably wasn't true because Romello planned to ask me out for lunch, and naturally he would have kept the rest of his afternoon open if something progressed between us. And is that an Adumbrae? You guys are going to get hunted by the bid for sure. Or even the Corbring. I rolled my eyes. What a stupid thing to say, Romello. What should we do then? Let you go so you can report us and then we'll get killed. Rofirio licked the piercings on his lips and continued, we just want to have fun with you kids. Don't be so uptight. He motioned for one of his goons and pointed to the abominable creature's neck. For clarification, this is not an Adumbrae. We tried and failed. There's no one up here, he said, prodding the monster's head. Human or Adumbrae, no one's home. A mutant may be an apt term. The musclehead with a funky beard injected something into the mutant's neck. I think it was the same substance they used to wake up Romello. As the monster stirred, they retreated to a safe distance and took out their stun gun batons. Romello said to me, "Don't worry. I will protect you." The monster roared, making both of us flinch. It thrashed about, jumped out of the container, and headed for the muscle grunts, but stopped at the sight of them waving stun batons as if it had experienced them before. I believe you'll protect me," I said, starting to sob. "Hide over there," Romello said. I ran to the stack of boxes he pointed to. Rofirio cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted, "Round 1, ladies and gentlemen. Place your bets. How long will this fine, strapping young lad last? 1 minute. 2. The mutant rushed at Romello, running on all fours as it couldn't run normally with its lopsided legs. It swiped with its long arms. Romello ducked and rolled, drawing it away from me. As he picked himself up, the monster let loose a barrage of punches with surprising speed. Romello held up his arms. Sickening thuds and cracks echoed, Romello misjudging the strength of its inhuman punches. To his credit, he didn't scream but only grimaced. He jumped out of the way as the monster started to smash wooden crates. Rofirio and his men cheered him on while he expertly dodged hits from the monster after getting a taste of its strength. 2 minutes already. Let's go 3 minutes. Any bets if he could hit back? In answer, Romello dove for a broken piece of wood shaped like a stake. He waited for the monster to strike, timing his attack between its raging fists. He rushed with the stake straight into its belly, putting his weight behind it, stabbing the monster deep. I shouted to cheer, surprising myself. I guess it was only normal to root for the underdog. Something hit Romello, throwing him across the room. He landed into a pile of sacks. The monster had kicked him with its extra-long right leg. It folded behind it. "Stand up, lover boy!" Rofirio bellowed. "It's going to get your girlfriend." The monster was indeed coming for me. I ran further back into the warehouse. My mind was already calculating if I should use my powers. A roar reverberated, but it wasn't the monster. It was Romello. Fueled by adrenaline, he rushed headlong into the monster as if he didn't have any injuries, and tackled it. He grasped the stake, pulled it out, and began stabbing the monster again and again with his remaining strength. Unfortunately, the monster also didn't care about pain. It grabbed Romello with both of its grotesque hands, pried him off, and threw him away. Romello hit his head on the floor and then rolled across like a ragdoll. The mutant hollered in triumph and lumbered towards Romello to finish him off. "That's enough entertainment for now," Rofirio said. He ran to intercept the monster, dropping to the ground to touch it. Just like what happened to me previously, the monster's feet sunk to the floor, stopping it in its tracks. "There, I saved your friend," Rofirio said. "Don't cry anymore, little girl. Are you okay, Romello?" I rushed over, knelt beside him, and cradled his head. "Of course, not," I said dryly under my breath. That was a dumb question. He was out cold. A bright red gash glistened on his forehead from where he hit the floor. He had bruises and wounds all over his exposed arms from trying to block the blows and clawing of the crazed mutant. Blood dripped from the side of his mouth. He probably sustained internal injuries too. But he was still breathing. I patted his head. "You did good," I thought unsarcastically. I always appreciated naturally good people, those who would help others even if there was nothing in return, or even to their detriment. They were so unlike me, I would never be like them. Neither could I truly understand them. I found that especially fascinating. They were like a rare animal that should be protected. I didn't know if Romello was going to survive his injuries or if he could even get out of here alive, but he should be honored that I thought highly of him. If he'd die, let the world remember this man who sacrificed his life for me even if I didn't care for his life. I'll make you a medal and put it on your casket, I swear. Rofirio approached the flailing mutant. It tried to reach him with its hands, making him step back. The audacity of my food to try to eat me. He spat at the mutant and bent down again to reach the floor. His fingers dipped into the ground. It gave way as if it was water. He swirled the liquefied concrete, then coaxed it up into a blob, its consistency turning thicker, similar to that of clay. With expert hands, he quickly fashioned the crude form of a knife with the concrete turned putty. He pinched the base of the edge and smoothed it out with a flourish, flicking away the excess material. The clumps of mushy concrete become solid after leaving his fingers. They bounced off the ground with a crumbling sound expected from gravel. Rofirio waved his creation, slicing and stabbing an imaginary target in front of him. The knife had hardened and didn't break apart with all his movement. The mutant continued wailing in the background. He lunged at the feral mutant, driving the knife deep in between its eyes up to its crudely fashioned hilt. The unfortunate former human spasmed. It gripped Rofirio's arm and tried to pull it out. But it couldn't fight against Rofirio's strength. Instead of budging, Rofirio twisted his knife and lifted the creature with it high up in the air, releasing the hold on its legs, demonstrating his enhanced strength by doing it with only one hand. "Is your friend still alive?" he said. "I don't. Yes, I think he is," I sobbed. "We were instructed to keep only you alive. Your friend was in the wrong place at the wrong time, little girl." He slammed the mutant to the ground. He pressed his other hand to the floor, softening it. Pushing the body of the creature down, he submerged it into the ground until only the upper portion of its head remained. "Since we're going to be waiting here for a while, I don't even know what we're waiting for." He turned to one of his lackeys. "Do you know what we're waiting for?" "No idea, boss." "Is Big Marcy already in the main building?" "No idea, boss." "Is that all you can say?" Rofirio wagged his finger at him. The grunt took a step back. "I'll go find out." "Go on. You do that while I have my meal." Rofirio threw the knife up, caught it, and slammed it on the mutant's head exposed above the floor. It made me wonder if there were other people buried below me. His power was very convenient for hiding bodies. And if you didn't know about his ability, he could catch you off guard and incapacitate you quickly. He opened the skull of the mutant and rummaged around it. "What you looking at, little girl?" he said, noticing my stare. "Nothing. I wasn't looking." I bowed my head. "Look back here." He threw the knife and it landed beside me. "Look at me when I'm talking to you, little girl." I followed his orders. "I'm eating, you see. A natural thing." He ripped the mutant's scalp off and removed pieces of the cracked skull. "Very natural, even though it might be uncomfortable to look at. Just like breastfeeding in public. It's just a baby eating. Let them be. Just like I'm eating this mutant's brain. Don't be disgusted." He sat cross-legged with the exposed brain in front of him. "Ah, found it. As the Japanese say, itadakimasu. Did I say that right, Burke?" Another one of his lackeys nodded. "Let's insert some international culture in this place," he said as he stuck his finger into the mutant's brain and scooped out its contents. "Why are you eating that?" I asked meekly. "Speak up, little girl." "I won't bite." "Oh. But I would." I was asking, why are you eating that? Isn't that dangerous?" "Yes and no. For normal people, yes. For normal people, food is sustenance. For me, this is retaining myself. If I don't do this, then I'll lose myself to the dark void that always creeps there, asking to be paid its due after giving me powers." What did he say? I closed my eyes. Pause, freeze frame, halt, time out. Did he mean he was eating the brain to keep himself from losing his personality to the Adumbrae? Didn't Dario say they suspected the Adumbrae hiding in Division Proxy was using criminal organizations to conduct experiments in holding back the Adumbrae taking over the mind? What if these people were intentionally making these mutants to harvest them? What if part of the brain of these mutants had something that could stop the Adumbrae's usurpation of the mind? Did that brain taste good? Hey! Hey! Rofirio said. Little girl. Don't close your eyes. I opened my eyes. What? Didn't I say you should look at me while eating? This is nature in motion. He paused and wiped the blood from his mouth. You're not crying anymore. Finally composed yourself? Or are you in shock? I looked at the unconscious Romello, slowly dying in my arms. I had a face for him, my law school timid girl face who could also be assertive. But these guys? Rofirio, his grunts, and everyone else around here. I didn't have a face for any of them. They'd all die by my hands anyway, so why bother to make a face for them? I made faces for people I'd meet again. That was the point. My first meeting with people was for making a face for our future social interactions. I really hated wasting my time making a face, like back in high school when I worked out so I could join the cheerleading squad to steal away the boyfriend of a girl that annoyed me who incidentally preferred cheerleaders and he ended up changing schools anyway. I dug my nails into my palms as I controlled the urge to cringe at my stupid schemes when I was a kid. She's just staring blankly at me. Rofirio waved at his men. One of you slap her around. The point of this is for kids to understand they shouldn't be disgusted by something natural. I'm not a kid, I said calmly. I laid Romello's head on the floor and adjusted his position to be comfortable. I don't know why you keep calling me that. I'm short, but not like super short. I guess I do look young for my age. I stood up and smoothened my clothes. You know what? Sometimes I get mistaken for a high schooler. This guy? He's not my boyfriend. By the way, are you guys releasing me later? I suppose so, Rofirio said. We're not going to kill you. But we'll kill that guy so he can't snitch. How about me? You're right. I think you'll need to be taught a lesson to keep your mouth shut. We also need to teach you good manners. Burke, strip her. Okay, boss. I don't really have much in the way of curves, I said. I placed my right arm behind my back, palm open, concentrating on summoning the mask spooky errand lent me. Just my lucky day, said Rofirio, I do like little girls. He licked his lips and wiped his bloodied hands on his pants. Big Marcy didn't say I couldn't play with you. Let me see the goods. If you take your clothes off, no need for Burke to hurt you. I'm the shy type, I said, grinning. Rofirio shrugged. Todd, get me a seat for this show. Burke, go ahead. I opened my long snout wide enough to cover Burke's face, showing off rows of sharp teeth that would put a metal grinder to shame, the muscles of my jaws brimming with power. And then I chomped down, removing the front half of his face. Mark, more popularly known as Big Marcy, a moniker which he hated, leaned back on his custom-made fake Harper executive chair and propped his feet on the window sill, gazing at his daily view of the steel jungle of shipping containers. The gold buckle of his Tresmany shoes, made with soft goatskin, caught a hint of the afternoon sun and gave a smart glint. The chair was delivered only yesterday and cost him 10 grand. It was supposedly made with a unique, space-age fabric, whatever that meant, and special gel filled its cushions that conformed to the body shape of its user. However, as he sat on it, Mark could not tell what made it worth the 10 grand he paid for it. Its modern design also felt out of place in the rustic theme of his office, filled with his antique collections sourced from all over the world. He was already regretting buying the darn chair. Other than the addition of his new chair, it was another mundane business day for Mark. Making money for himself, and for his brother who always took a larger cut of the pie. They were twins and they divided everything equally since they were born. Up until his brother, Mark, took over the family smuggling business. From that point on, his brother's share in everything steadily became bigger and bigger than what Mark would get. Which was fine with him. After all, it was Mark who established their current operation, with smuggling relegated as their secondary income source. Things could have gone differently if he was the one approached by the supplier instead of his brother. But Lady Luck was fickle, and he could hardly blame his brother for that. What Mark could not forgive was that he had to give up his name. He was named Mark, but it was too confusing to call him that when his brother was also Mark. He had no idea why their parents named them Mark and Mark, but eventually people called him Mark with a C, and it became Marcy, while his brother retained the usage rights over Mark. That was downright unfair as he came out of their mother's womb a full 30 minutes before his brother. As he grew tall and large, people started calling him Big Marcy. He had plans for deposing Mark, but for now, he had to sit tight on his space-age chair for he did not know how to even contact Mark's supplier for their current operation. The click on an attaché case closing told him Captain Gerald Price of the LEPD finished counting his weekly retainer fee. Mark straightened his Hermes tie, adjusted the diamond-studded tie bar, and turned his chair around with the grandeur of the evil boss in a movie. Childish, yes, but he always derived enjoyment from turning his chair to face visitors. "All in order, Captain Price," he said. "60 grand in the bag?" Captain Price, a jovial stocky man who had a serious shot at police commissioner with Mark's backing, tapped the brown leather attaché case. 60 grand, yes. I seem to have gotten an increase of my retainer fee. The additional 10 grand is for your increased efforts in controlling your men from snooping around in our operations. You mean? Lieutenant Hall, he is sending men into establishments we control. We even spotted him staking out the entrance of the docks last week. You understand this is inconvenient for us. Captain Price chuckled heartily. I don't know what to tell you. Hall is one of the best police officers in the city. I have to keep him around to make me look good. Captain, may I remind you of our operation here? We are on the other side of the law, yes, but this is not a simple question of going to jail if we are found out. I know that, Mark, Captain Price said, aware of his gripe with his brother's name. You can trust me, you know that. I've been your reliable partner ever since, and even your father's way back when I was a beat cop a couple of decades ago. My father's operations pale in comparison to this. Not only in terms of rewards but especially in terms of risk. Mark leaned forward. We can be executed without trial here. And that is why, as much as possible, I do not want to have my hand forced on this matter. Hall is the godfather of Melissa, right? Captain Price waved Mark's concerns away. It needn't come to that. That would be too messy. Hall is popular and is an especially prominent figure in the African American community here in La Esperanza. Hell, even the Hispanics love him. Very fortunate he's not one to aspire for police commissioner, that's why I keep him close. It'd make too much rustle if something untoward happened to him. And, yes, my baby girl Melissa would be sad if something happens to her Uncle Jeremiah. 10 grand additional weekly, for your added efforts. Mark emphasized the word efforts as he felt Captain Price was not taking the situation seriously. Keep him away from us. You're not making it easy for me, you know. Captain Price said. If this continues, this might not even be enough for the effort. He pointed to the bag. That thing with Sanders Mall was a pain, to be honest. Mark's brows furrowed. What do you mean? The fire? It was finally ruled as faulty electrical wiring, but you know the strings I had to pull to get it to that? It was obviously an arson, and not by any simple arsonist. 2 people died there, Mark. Stuff like this doesn't happen in our city. The bigger the incident, the more chances someone might stick their nose into somewhere they shouldn't be. I have no idea about that, he said. He looked at Jim Ambrose, his trusted advisor and also bodyguard who was fitted with military-grade bio-augmentronics. Jim shook his head. Mark shrugged then said, I promise you, Captain. We had no hand in whatever happened at Sanders Mall. We would have alerted you as soon as possible if it had anything to do with us. You say that, but we found traces of questionable damage to several cars in the mall's parking area that weren't caused by the fire. Captain Price's eyes narrowed. As if something not human had a small scramble over there. You know the effort I exerted to have that buried and destroyed? This time, it was Captain Price who emphasized effort. I assure you, we monitor our clientele very closely. I assume they have enough discretion to know to act accordingly. We will look into this. I hope so. If that's the case, then it might be real trouble then. I'll try to keep it under wraps as much as possible and solve it locally so the bid won't come here. How about you assign Hull to that case? Get him off our backs. That's an option. Captain Price stood and picked up his money. We're all done here. I do hope you keep your clientele under control. People with that much money want to test out what they paid for. They have to realize there are some things money, influence, and power can't buy. Therefore, we focus on what we can buy, he said pointedly. Thank you, Captain Price. Do update us on your investigation of that case. We are interested if it might be connected to us. After Captain Price left, Mark reviewed the documents on his table. There was going to be another event on Red Island next Thursday and the limited slots for the audience, who were also the bidders, were auctioned off. The usual attendees were there, but he had to investigate the new ones. Prospective clients were always welcome, but they were also possible liabilities. Or worse, they might be government agents or spies from rival organizations. As Captain Price mentioned, there were some things money could not buy. This was why Mark thoroughly vetted those coming to the Red Island, no matter how much they were willing to pay. What Captain Price said about the Sanders fire bothered him. He was aware that a group with superhuman powers has attempted on a few occasions to sabotage their operations. He was not actually sure if they were augmented humans or former humans who have tapped on the forbidden powers of the Adumbrae. If it was the latter, then that group was undoubtedly connected with the supplier. Mark was sure none of their clients he personally approved was damn stupid enough to expose themselves. Or it could be other organizations, damn those bastards. Sir, Jim Ambrose said, knocking on his open door to get his attention. Rofi Boy is asking if you're free to deal with the girl you ordered to be taken. Behind Jim Ambrose was one of Rofirio's underlings. About that, Mark said. It was Mark who actually wanted her to be taken. I am not sure why. Just keep her there. He noticed Rofirio's underling whispering something to Jim Ambrose. What is it? Is something wrong? Jim Ambrose said, Sir, he says Rofi Boy took one of our mutants and had the captive fight with it. He did what? Mark boomed. You were not supposed to hurt her. Sir. Sir, that's not what happened. Rofirio's underling held his hand up. There was a guy too. When we got the girl, she was with a guy, so we got the guy too. And Sir Rofirio was bored, so he said we could have a little fun, make the guy fight one of the mutants. We got no instructions about the guy, so. Yes, you did not have to bring him in the first place, Mark snapped. Rofirio's not thinking. Again. And, even if he is not going to hurt the girl, he is a fool for casually showing off the merchandise. Those are not toys to play with. Mark punctuated his word by slamming his fist on his antique oak table. Is that what you have been doing when I am not looking? Playing with the merchandise? Is Rofirio trying out his powers on them? The man nodded. Damn it. I knew I should not have agreed to his pleading. Even drug dealers know not to sample their own wares. Want me to deal with it, sir? Jim Ambrose said. I heard gunfire. Are you sure? Mark did not hear anything, but enhanced hearing was included in Jim Ambrose's augments, so he believed him. He held up his finger, signaling everyone to keep silent. He closed his eyes and concentrated. It was faint and muffled, but there were multiple pops. Is that Rofirio? Is he shooting for fun or did he lose control of the merchandise? Which one did you get? Just one of the normal ones, sir, Big Marcy, sir, said Rofirio's lackey. We didn't dare touch the large containers. We couldn't fit those through the doors of warehouse 2B where we keep the girl and the guy anyway. Mark grunted in disdain. He had plenty to deal with on his plate right now. Go knock some sense into Rofirio after you have the situation under control, he told Jim Ambrose. I will deal with him tonight. Do not forget to keep the mutant intact if possible. Each one could buy a few dozen of this new goddamn chair I have. With that, Jim left the office. Mark went back to managing the budding Mark and Mark criminal empire. Before more than a few minutes had passed, however, more gunfire disturbed him. They were louder, this time as if they were shooting in the open, as opposed to the earlier subdued noise that sounded to have been fired inside a warehouse. There was a pause for a few more minutes, before the gunshot started again, followed by a couple of explosions. He raised his brow. He dialed the security post near the warehouses. Whoever this is, he said as soon as someone picked it up, what the hell is happening? Has Jim Ambrose passed by there? Tell him to settle it as fast as POS. Big Marcy, sir. Jim is dead. It ate him. What? What do you mean Jim is dead? What is happening over there? Jim tried to fight it, sir. The monster just ripped him apart and ate him. It's a monster. Oh God no, it's coming this way. There was a scream and more gunfire before the line went dead. An attack? No matter who it was, Mark was unfazed. He called the guards where the merchandise was kept and ordered them evacuated. Next, he called the rest of his men to join him to handle the threat. The mutants and other supplies were the priority. They had plenty of properties elsewhere, and their primary business was not located here. But if they lost the mutants and the government somehow discovered those, they would be dead men walking. Mark pressed a secret button underneath his table and out popped a hidden drawer containing an enormous handgun, a Crestmare .500 Magnum, modified to hold armor-piercing, explosive rounds. It was heavy and unwieldy, even for his huge hands, but it was something that could surely kill a lesser Adumbrae in one, well-placed shot. Just make sure the brain explodes and the Adumbrae would go down for good. He descended the staircase as his secretaries and other office aides quickly packed up all the sensitive documents in his office, preparing to evacuate themselves. 24 of his men waited for him at the building's lobby. They were armed with assault rifles and powerful electroshock guns designed to fry Adumbrae brains. The trick was to expose the brain first before shooting the electroshock guns, and for that, they needed all the firepower they could get, especially if the target was one of the types that regenerated extremely fast. Given the nature of the merchandise they kept, they were well prepared to recapture any of them in the event they escaped, and that included the hulking mutant beasts that could rival a fully manifested lesser Adumbrae. Boss, I think you should evacuate, Marcello, Jim Ambrose's right-hand man, said. He had not undergone augmentation yet, which was a pity since they could use the extra firepower. No, I will stay, Mark said, displaying his gun. I am not one to run. Moreover, I would like to see what is attacking us. This cannot be the mutant Rofirio took out, right? We're not sure, sir. If it becomes too dangerous, we have to evacuate you. Their group marched out of the building. Screams, gunfire, and small explosions told them the threat was approaching. Several men emerged at the end of the street trying to flee toward the office building, running away from something hidden in the stacks of shipping containers. Greg, Motley, you guys are up, Marcello barked. 2 men carrying shoulder-fired rocket launchers with anti-tank warheads knelt. Wait for my signal. They mounted the launchers and stilled, eyes trained on the containers. For a moment, nothing, then something huge came into view. Mark was barely able to process what it was when Marcello said, "Fire," without any regard to the men who were running away from the monster. 2 missiles flew and hit their target, blowing apart the containers on its either side. Howling filled the air and chilled their hearts in fear. Steel, debris, dust, and smoke filled the air. A couple of the fleeing men were also caught in the explosion, making Mark cluck his tongue in disapproval. "Apologies, sir," Marcello said. "That thing apparently killed Jim Ambrose. We have to damage it as much as possible before it reaches us." "Reload, Greg and Motley." "Good judgment call, Marcello," Mark said. He held up his gun and aimed forward. A creature burst from the smoke. A werewolf was what came to mind. It was more than 10 feet tall with long, blazing red fur coiling around its body and waving all over to a non-existent wind. Unforgiving fangs bared, rows of knives ready to rip anything apart. It was bloodied and bruised from the explosion, but it did not look like it was going down any time soon. Spotting one of Mark's men on the ground, it picked him up and nonchalantly bit his head. Damnation to all. Mark realized what was happening. It is regenerating by eating people. It turned its attention to them. It dropped the body it was snacking on and rushed in their direction, first starting to run on 2 legs, then dropping down to all 4s. Muscles rippled all over its body, giving power to its arms and legs as it bounded closer and closer, its huge claws gripping the pavement, propelling it further with each step. "Shoot! Shoot it!" Mark ordered. "Kill it now." Rio Hinode had been in the dark for more than 2 hours, the longest period he had his eyes closed while awake. This wasn't counting the times he stayed up for hours late at night, lying in bed with eyes shut tight, unable to sleep, stressed, anxious, afraid of what he had gotten himself into, afraid of dying, killed by either Human-Adumbrae, remembering the pain of death he felt each time one of his fairy summons died. But he wasn't that spineless piece of shit right now, for he was Oberon, the king of the fairies. Although, he conceded that royalty across history would agree that the back seat of a 2007 Mayfair galleon wasn't a throne fit for a king. With only 4 fairies under his command, and able to summon only one of them at a time, perhaps this was as royal as he could get. His gang did make his place as comfortable as possible. Johann removed the back seats so he had space to kneel and stretch his arms. They secured firm cushions on the floor, arranged to hold his legs and butt in place so he could kneel for long periods with ease. Even if the car was moving at high speeds, it was more like sitting than kneeling with all the support cushions. Slings hung from the ceiling that attached to his wrists, holding his hands up as required to maintain his summon. The general constitution of his body had improved since he melded with an artificial core, but it didn't mean it was easy to hold the summoning position for long. They also had the windows tinted so no one could see the weird shit inside. Without context, someone seeing Oberon in his summoning pose would think that it was some kinky sex thing. And someone who knew the context would report them to the bid. A van would have been more convenient. Those storage vans were pretty roomy, and they could easily deck it out for his use. But they realized they couldn't easily park a large van anywhere without inviting suspicion. Not to mention they couldn't agree on how to disguise a van, a laundry van, pest control, or a move-in van. It was also a matter of money. When Blank's car was totaled in a previous mission, they all decided to chip in and buy a cheap second-hand car they could use for their operations, this old Mayfair model. Oberon hoped that if ever this car would also get wrecked, he wouldn't be inside. "Johann texted me he finished his investigation," Barb said from the front passenger seat. "He's coming down now." Finally, Oberon said. Out of his 4 fairies, Sneak was his only summon where he retained his consciousness and was able to control his body, including being able to talk. With the other fairies, he enters a trance and was mildly aware of what was happening only to the fairy and not his own body. He would just be there, kneeling with his mouth wide open, until the fairy returned or died. "You okay there, Obe?" "What do you think?" he snapped. "I don't know. Maybe you're actually having fun back there," Barb said with a snicker. "Oh yeah. 5-star accommodations, lobster buffet, coffee rub spa. It's awesome back here." Coffee rub spa. Is that a thing? I don't know. I've seen a flyer of it. Oberon cleared his throat. Could you get me a drink and maybe a gum? He heard Barb rummaging and then felt a straw press on his mouth. He thankfully sipped the water. Open your mouth, Barb said, and Oberon complied. Here comes the gum. She made airplane noises before plopping the gum into his mouth. Thanks for that. No prob. I know you must be dying for a smoke right now. The driver's side door opened and someone got in. Johann spoke, terribly sorry that took some time. But I now know where to go, and I hope I'm right. Oberon heard keys jingling and being inserted into the car ignition. Those plates are from a corporation named Dawson Stevedoring and Logistics, LLC. After some digging, get this, I found it's one of the companies controlled by our pals, the 2MS. Johann was referring to the Mark and Big Marcy criminal mastermind brothers. It looks legitimate on paper, but I think it's one of the companies they're using for their smuggling business. The engine of the car roared to life. We're going there now. To the docks. Using cars from their own company. Bold, aren't they? Barb said. That's the thing, Johann said. While I was having the plates that Obe saw checked. I asked my cop buddies over at Traffic Collisions if they could connect to the Metro traffic feed, the live traffic camera system, and help me get footage of the street outside Aaron's apartment building. I owe so many people free lunches at Taco Mastodon. Barb exclaimed, hey, what if they saw Aaron getting kidnapped? We're avoiding the police getting involved in this, remember? Then they will get involved, Oberon said. We'll have to trust the 2M brothers to hide all their illegal bullshit, especially the ones connected to the Adumbrae. And we'll just find Aaron in the commotion. My thinking exactly, Johann said. But, curiously, the traffic cams on Aaron Street weren't working or were disabled by someone. That's why Rofirio didn't care about kidnapping them in broad daylight, and with their company cars no less. Wow, really? Not only on that street where Aaron was taken. All traffic cameras of the surrounding blocks were also dead. It's good we knew what cars they used and the company they were registered to. I asked for the feed of the cameras going from Aaron's place to the office of the Stevedoring company and caught those cars passing by those roads. It's a safe bet they're going to the docks. Barb said, we were lucky Obe had the presence of mind to memorize the car model and plates. Whoa, what do you mean? Oberon pretended to be extremely offended. My presence of mind was a matter of luck. Johann and Barb laughed. It made him feel a little bit better, chipping away at the fear in his heart. He could really use a smoke right now. But if he did, he would break the summon of sneak. Actually, we were luckier Rofirio didn't notice my fairy sneaking up behind his ass, he said. Although Sneak was tiny, just like his other fairies, and slightly transparent, unlike the others, he could still be spotted by someone paying attention to their surroundings. We are the luckiest Sneak was able to hide before it lost its connection with Obe, Barb said. They couldn't find Sneak, right? Oberon frowned. He didn't like referring to his fairies as it, they were his royal subjects after all. Nah, they couldn't find Sneak even if they wanted to. Sneak could become completely invisible if he stuck on something and stopped moving this time. He was able to stick to Rofirio's left leg before the criminals took Aaron and that other dude, and sped away. Not simply invisible. He wouldn't even register in people's minds if they accidentally bumped or touched him in his invisible state. A person had to be specifically looking for Sneak to recognize him when detected. Unless Rofirio accidentally jumped into a grinder, Sneak is safe. It'll be awesome if Rofirio did jump into a grinder, Barb said. No way. I'll feel Sneak getting ground up like minced meat too. After about 20 minutes of Johann's bumpy, reckless driving, Oberon felt the car slow down. Barb clicked her tongue and slapped what sounded like the dashboard. The car suddenly sped up. Johann said for Oberon's benefit, there are guards. Not simple security guards. Buff dudes with big guns, Barb said. Like what are you guys doing there? Too obvious. They won't care about being discreet because the only vehicles passing by here are cargo trucks and their people. And now they saw us, Oberon said. It looks like we're at the right place, Barb said. What do we do? I'll try driving around the perimeter, Johann said, to see if Obe can connect. Oberon concentrated, trying to feel sneak. Each of his ferries had a certain range they could operate away from him. If they crossed that distance for one reason or another, they would hibernate in their last state until Oberon reconnects with them or breaks the summoning position. Sneak's range was about 150 meters away from him, the furthest among the 4 summons. As Rofirio sped away to some godforsaken hole, Sneak went to sleep. No dice, Oberon said. But I can feel Sneak is inside, just out of reach. He didn't stop the summon so that they'd have an easier time finding Rofirio, and also Erend, once they knew the general location of where to search. We attack them? What? No. Johann said. Barb, don't do stupid things. There's only 3 of us and tons of them. Only 2, Oberon said. I won't be able to summon a different ferry. Okay, 2. I got a gun, but they also have guns, lots of guns. Barb has powers, but they have lots of firepower. Rofirio also has powers, and we don't know who else they got inside. Fine. Barb sighed. So, this is it then. We wait. With Blank, we might be able to get through the entrance, but he's meeting the professor. MC can make this place go up in flames, but he's sulking like a baby. Barb, Johann said, 2 people died in the fire at. I know. Okay. No need to bring it up again. Quiet down. Oberon ordered. He strained his ears. There it was again. Gunfire. You're right, Barb said. More shooting, louder this time. What the hell's happening inside? This is our chance. Let's go back to the entrance. Oberon groaned. Don't tell me you want to attack from the front. But it was too late, he could feel Johann frantically driving back. Guys, I don't think this is a good idea. Oberon assumed Barb charged towards the entrance gate. People were shooting at them, or rather at Barb, and he could hear bullets ricochet in all directions. There was shouting and cursing. He prayed fervently to any god who existed that he wouldn't get hit by stray bullets. Here we go, Obe, Johann said. Oberon tensed up, gritted his teeth, and clenched his butt. He pleaded to the heavens he wouldn't die here in a position like he was in a sex rig. He didn't want to die with his eyes closed, unable to see what would kill him. Should he open his eyes? No. They bounced, a speed bump most likely, and hit something that gave way with a crunch. Something jumped on the car, making it buckle. What was that? Oberon said in a worried voice. You mean the guardhouse? Johann said. Or Barb on top. Let's follow the shooting, Barb shouted from above them. Johann drove frantically. Left, right, then a curve. Oberon gave up trying to remember where they were going. Don't charge into the gunfire, Oberon said. Slow down, I don't want to die. Nothing yet. Wait, I feel it. There we go, I'm back online. Nice, Barb said. Keep me updated on what's happening. I'll try to find them in the gunfire hubbub. And stand by for quick extraction. Aye, Captain, Johann said sarcastically. The car did a little bounce as she jumped off. Talk to me, Obe. What do you have? I'm still opening my eyes, I mean Sneak's eyes. As Sneak's vision connected with his, he saw he was clinging to some kind of leather material. Rofirio was wearing leather pants, so this must be his leg. Sneak looked around. Shit, what is this? What? Where are you? Sneak flew up to get a better view of his surroundings. In a warehouse with its doors ripped apart by something huge. There are body parts everywhere. A bloodbath. Sneak went down to each of them. Pieces of flesh were ripped and torn by a creature he didn't want to meet. Is that bastard Rofirio finally dead? Rofirio was the one who stabbed Oberon in one of their missions while he was in summoning mode. He gave him nightmares after that. Can you see who they're fighting? You mean, what they're fighting? I don't think it's human. It's not here though. It's somewhere outside, thank God. A couple of explosions rocked the air. Oberon smirked. Fireworks for celebrating Rofirio's death. Wow, they're going at it outside. Is Erend and that other guy there? They don't seem to be here. Oh, someone is covered by some boxes and debris. Sneak tried to push away the things piled on top of the body, but his tiny body lacked the strength to do so. He burrowed into the debris to find the face of this person. I think this is him, the dude with Erend earlier. But he's in a bad shape. Sneak opened the eyes of the dude. He seems to be alive. Barely. We need to get Barb there. Sneak flew outside of the warehouse. Death and carnage everywhere. So many dead bodies, or what remained of them after a monster tore through them. The 2M brothers messed up big time here. What kind of experiment of theirs escaped? Oberon relayed everything he saw to Johann, the placement of the sun, the warehouse numbers, other surrounding landmarks, anything that could help Barb know where to go, and Johann repeated everything over the phone to Barb. I'm trying to avoid the fighting, Barb said on the loudspeaker of Johann's phone. I need more directions. Barb, there's something nasty here, Oberon said. I'm looking for it. Oh my God. Sneak turned a corner and came upon a feral beast of nightmares. 8 feet tall. Even as it was hunched over, the furred creature was feasting on a body, a human leg dangled out of its disproportionately large jaws. Its powerful arm suddenly stretched out, clawed hands opened, and reached for Sneak. Oberon willed Sneak to beat his wings as fast as he could and fly up. But it was too late. Tiny Sneak was going to get caught. He readied himself for the pain from Sneak getting squeezed like a tube of toothpaste. Surprising salvation came. The side of the monster exploded, followed by a barrage of gunfire. The monster shielded itself with its arms, its hide and flesh as durable as the side of a tank. Only small nicks that barely bled were all the guns could show after their hard work. Sneak, with this window of opportunity, fluttered over the top of the warehouses, putting as much distance between him and the monster. What happened, Obe? Johann said. Tell me so I can tell Barb what to do. He looked back at what the monster was doing. Oblivious to the men shooting at it, the monster went back to eating a body. And Oberon soon realized why. It healed itself from eating the bodies of the dead men. All the damage it sustained was being healed and was gone in a heartbeat, soon replaced by a fresh set of injuries as a new wave of assault started. He could have sworn it was steadily growing larger. We need more firepower, someone shouted, someone very familiar to Oberon and the rest of the gang. Jim Ambrose is here, Oberon said. Their favorite augmented human. Barb fought with Jim Ambrose before and was barely able to escape because Blank was there to disable him. Unfortunately, they couldn't finish him at that time because his nervous system was also augmented and shocked him out of Blank's hold. That means Big Marcy is here too? Johann said. Probably. Jim Ambrose is leading the men against the monster. Jim bared his mechanical arms layered with Cerasteel, the same armor plating used by military Comexo units. Oberon knew each arm had hidden electroshock silo engines that generate fields of energy that could knock out and fry a Adumbrae brain, the best way to stop an Adumbrae. The werewolf Adumbrae lunged at the men on a jeep trying to maneuver a machine gun mounted on top of it. Jim Ambrose used that opening to land a hit on the monster, rocking its skull. The energy field exploded and enveloped the Adumbrae. It staggered and fell. Jimmy boy took it down, Oberon said. Tell Barb to hurry up. We should get closer and meet up with her. Johann started driving the car. Oberon wanted to protest coming closer to danger, but he knew they needed to get Barb out as fast as possible. He controlled Sneak to fly lower to get a better view, attached himself to the upper side of a warehouse, and turned invisible. Jim Ambrose approached the unconscious monster, kicking it smugly. Another successful capture of an escapee, or so it would seem. The monster was only feigning getting knocked out. It grabbed Jim Ambrose's left arm, its huge fist enclosing the whole limb, and squeezed hard. Oberon could hear through Sneak the metal getting crumpled like a milk carton box. Jim Ambrose was so reliant on his electroshock attack that he let his guard down. He raised his other fist to deliver another electrifying blow, but the monster had already shown it didn't care for anything he could throw at it. The creature caught Jim Ambrose's other arm and stood up, dangling the clothes on a laundry line. Jim couldn't break free. In desperation, it appeared he decided to overload the engines on his arms. A dangerous whirring noise signaled the destruction to come. A large explosion and blinding light. Oberon momentarily couldn't see through Sneak's eyes. As Sneak's vision came back, Oberon saw Jim Ambrose's armless torso sticking out of the monster's mouth, slowly getting chewed. The hands of the monster were torn to shreds by the explosion, but it was already eating the barbecued body of Jim Ambrose to heal itself. I'm inside the warehouse, Barb said, breaking Oberon's horrified concentration on the brutal end of another one of their nemesis. Where's Aaron's friend? Sneak returned to the warehouse with Roferio's leg. Jim Ambrose is dead, Oberon said to Barb over the phone's loudspeaker. The monster ate him. Big Marcy is going to be so pissed. Well, we're not going to be the one to stop it, Oberon said. The guy is over there, by the way. He pointed the location with Sneak's tiny hand. The monster went away probably to find other food to eat. There didn't seem to be any of Big Marcy's men that survived, so Johann decided it was safe, against Oberon's objections, to drive to the warehouse so they could easily load the injured guy they found into the car. Excuse me, Obe, Barb said. Heave-ho. Oberon heard the rear door of the car open and he felt someone squeeze in beside him. The back seat was a tight fit because even if the seats were removed, the cushions were there. He wanted to break the summon already, but they were still looking for Aaron. Did the monster eat her? Damn it. Sneak flew up again to see where they should go next. They decided to go to the office buildings past the rows of warehouses. The two MS might be there, controlling the operations of their smuggling business and their legitimate logistics business. If they wanted something from Aaron, she was likely held there. Oh, come on, Oberon groaned as the car followed Sneak flying above. I'm afraid to ask what is it this time, Johann said. Incoming 2 helicopters. One is huge with missiles and lots of guns. A gunship? Is it the military? The other helicopter looks like that used by rich people to land on the helipad of their giant luxury yachts. They're trying to save Big Marcy, Barb deduced. We were right that he's here. The attack helicopter started shooting at something on the ground and out of view a holy pissfire of lead. Unlike a rifle on auto where Oberon, to an extent, could identify the individual sounds of bullets fired, he could only hear a steady oppressive hum, the sounds of bullets fired so numerous they all merged into one single note of destruction. Missiles were let loose, fiery spears stabbing the ground. Johann stopped driving as they braced for impact. All of them inside the car yelled as the earth quaked. From Sneak's point of view high above, he could see the gunship chasing something through the towering stacks of freight containers. The other helicopter landed, a huge fellow surrounded by guards hurried to board it. With its precious cargo secured, the smaller chopper took off. The gunship let loose a few more spurts of hot lead before following Big Marcy. Sneak scouted ahead to try to find the monster if it was still alive. Perhaps luckily, they couldn't find any trace of it. They did, however, eventually find Erend, hiding in a freight container full of appliances that accidentally opened because of the explosions. She wasn't hurt, unlike the other guy they saved, only slightly disoriented. Oberon and the gang hightailed out of the docks as a cacophony of the sirens of police cars, fire trucks, and ambulances sounded in the distance. This looked like a dire situation for the 2M brothers, but Oberon was sure they had enough money to cover all of this up. And he was fine with the blatant corruption of the city's authorities, as well as the impunity of the operations of the 2M brothers. As long as it kept the eyes of the Corbrings away. Dean stared at me. "What?" I said. "The way you're stirring the tea. I also noticed it yesterday." I didn't say anything then, but are you all right? In accordance with rule number 1, I stirred my tea back and forth instead of the typical circular way. "I'm just used to doing it this way," I said. "I assure you, I'm very much okay." I bit off the crust of one side of the buttered toast Dean prepared and took a sip of my tea. "And tea for breakfast? With eggs and toast? What kind of tea is that? What are you, the breakfast police?" Both of us laughed. "It's chamomile tea. I'm not British, but I do prefer tea over coffee." "Treason," Dean said, followed by an offended gasp that was obviously fake. "Breakfast for me is only coffee, black, and nothing else. It's a nice change. I prepared breakfast for someone else." "How about your sister?" "She's barely home. Usually eats outside with her boyfriend." Dean went to the cupboard above the sink. She pulled out its contents and reached for something at the back. It was a golden-colored box with the name, Twinings. "I saw you brought over different kinds of tea. How about you try this one out?" "Breakfast tea," I said, reading the label. "It was given as a gift to me, but I don't drink tea and neither does Sis. It's been hiding away at the back of the cabinet for almost a year." She sat back down. "That's not expired by the way," she hastily added. "Twinings is the oldest tea brand I think. I've only ever bought American tea brands. I'll try this one out tomorrow." Another thing I noticed. "What?" "When you ate your breakfast yesterday, you started on the crust of the bread and then the middle part. You did the same for the fried egg as well. Eat the egg white first then the yolk. You're also doing it now." Dean shrugged. "Is it weird I find your habits interesting?" I grinned. "Do you think this is a nature documentary?" Actually, rule number 2 was the reason for the way I eat. Yes, the first rule was for drinks, and the second was for food. Absolute nonsense. Maybe, but rules are rules. I remembered my grandmother cut off the crust of the bread and threw it away when she made sandwiches. Pretty little kid me thought it was a waste. Grandma should have separately eaten the crust if she didn't want it with the rest of the bread. And then it became a rule. So that's that. If the food has some kind of outer and inner part, I'd eat the outer part first. It was fine for some food. For chicken, I'd eat the skin first, followed by the meat. It was weird for others, like I'd eat the pizza crust first, the edge part and the middle part with the toppings last. That creeped out some people, so if ever I craved pizza, I ate it alone. I tried very hard to comply with rule number 2 while I was previously in beast mode, and I couldn't. I have justifiable excuses. Firstly, I was barely able to keep my mind together with all the rage and power of the beast ripping apart my sanity. Secondly, it was also so hard to do the outer first thing with my huge mouth. Lastly, my primary goal was to kill them, and not eat like eating dinner or something like that. Rule number 2 shouldn't apply. I touched my mouth. It still felt surreal, as if everything was a dream after I started eating them. I knew it did happen from the news I saw on TV. However, they didn't actually report a huge Adumbrae rampaging at the docks. Some explosion due to incorrectly stored dangerous chemicals was the story. They did report that many warehouse employees died. It was their fault they died really. They bothered me, forsaking the protection everyone had under Rule Number 4. Once I was sufficiently bothered that the situation was taken out of the ambit of Rule Number 4, the life of the person that bothered me was forfeited. And it wasn't just Rule Number 4. It was such a weird feeling. Each time I was attacked, an unexplainable rage coursed through me. I mean, I'd naturally get angry if I got shot. Anybody would. But it was different when I transformed. Like a primal urge to kill who hurt me, to eat them. An insatiable hunger for the flesh of anyone who did me harm. With the number of people attacking me, I couldn't control the overwhelming rage surging in my body. And that was why I barely had any memory of what happened after I killed Rofirio and his men. "Are you sure you're all right?" Dean said. "Yes, I am. We've been friends since the first semester, but I don't really know much about you. Since you're staying here, I guess we'll get to know each other more. We'll need to because we're on the same side of the fight against Adumbrae." There was intense conviction in Dean's voice at the last part of her sentence. I was indeed staying at her house. After that incident, the League of Superhero Wannabes decided, and to which I agreed, that staying at my condo was dangerous. Dean offered for me to stay at her luxurious house so that at least I'd have company and protection. She assumed I wouldn't agree to be protected by the others, and she was correct. To me, it seemed like she had awakened her powers to some degree, and that gave her confidence to volunteer to guard me against whatever enemy we were facing. After packing my things, we went straight to her house and I already stayed here for the past 2 nights. The reason I agreed to such an arrangement wasn't exactly what Dean and the others thought. They assumed I wanted to be safe in case the criminal organization headed by the Mark and Big Marcy brothers, or the 2MS for short, came to visit me again. That was only partially true. I realized something was missing in all of this. Why did the 2MS kidnap me? Dario's group sold the story to Dean and me that the man who attacked us at the mall was sent by the 2MS. For their part, I suspected they thought the mysterious woman with the monster mouth Myra encountered at the mall was the one sent by the 2MS. Both weren't true. The 2MS shouldn't even know about me. How would they? Unless someone from Dario's group leaked information about me somehow, whether intentionally or not, to the 2MS. Myra perhaps? But they kidnapped her sister. What the 2MS wanted from me, I had no idea. However, it was clear I wasn't safe on my own, but I also didn't want to be with Dario's group. Staying with Dean was the best option. And her place was awesome. It was like I was having a vacation here. "Are you sure you're okay with still eggs and toast today?" Dean said. "I haven't prepared anything else." "Yup, they're good. I'll make something different for you tomorrow." "You really don't have to. I can cook for myself." "It's fine, I wanted to practice cooking anyway. To take my mind off things." Dean looked at my plate. "Are you already finished?" I nodded and took my plate and cup to the sink. She said, "We can go now to visit Romello at the hospital. It's best to leave early to avoid the rush hour." Romello was admitted to First Pioneer Hospital. Or rather, Rio and the others dropped him off there anonymously and ran away after. I was glad Romello survived and got the medical treatment he needed. It was a nice and comfy hospital. He almost lost his life protecting me, and that should deserve the highest honor. Unfortunately, the nurse told us that he was still unconscious even if no longer in a critical condition. "We can't visit him?" Dean asked the nurse. "No, ma'am. Only family members with identification are allowed." "I thought friends can visit, right?" "Ma'am, the patient is currently under police protection. We were informed he's an important witness to a crime. We just want to see how he is. We're his classmates. It'll be fast." The nurse didn't relent. "You can take that up with that detective over there," she said, nodding at a tall man wearing a brown trench coat who walked out of the elevator followed by 2 uniformed cops. With that final rejection, she left us and went back to her work. Dean and I looked at each other before approaching the man. He was discussing something with his companions. We didn't talk to him, just lingered for a moment nearby to catch what they were talking about. The guys in blue referred to him as Lieutenant Hull. "That guy is a close friend of Romello," I said. "He mentioned him before. They are close enough that he considers him his uncle." Dean pulled me into the elevator. "Let's go up and find Romello," she said. "But we don't know which room he's in." She waved her hand over the elevator buttons. She pressed a floor and the buttons lit up as we passed by their respective floors. They came from the 6th floor. I raised my brow but didn't say anything. That has got to be her superpower. But what was it? When we exited on the 6th floor, we separated to look for Romello's room. It was easy to find because it was the only room on that level with a policeman posted outside. We didn't go near, we were moving suspiciously enough but instead went back down. "Okay, we now know how the situation looks," Dean said. "Do you think they already know Romello was at the docks with me?" "I don't think so. If they did, the police would have already come looking for you." "True. But I should be prepared for the possibility I get investigated." There were cameras at the train station showing us together. "Let's go meet the others to talk about it, and also to plan how Dario can get in Romello's room to muddle his memories." "You're not calling him blank?" "We're not on a mission and I haven't been on any mission with them yet. By the way, how are you holding up?" I'm good." She patted my shoulder. "I know you don't really want to be a part of this, but these are the cards the world dealt us." I nodded with a depressed look on my face. "We will all get through this alive. I promise you that." I did not respond and only smiled at her, following her back to her car. Dean's definitely on my side. What about the hero wannabe gang? Were they friend or foe? I don't know. Nonetheless, I needed them for my protection. They knew about the criminal organization that was interested in me. On the other hand, one of them may be a danger to me. Of course, there was also the matter of punishing Myra, Dario, and Everett under Rule Number 4. But that had to take a back seat for now while I sorted this shit out. I didn't want to get kidnapped again. Something useful did come from that kidnapping. Rofirio, that purple-haired creep, essentially confirmed there was a way to stop, or at least slow down, the Adumbrae taking over the mind while retaining the powers they gave it was with consuming brains of monsters. That was it, right? Right. There was, this feeling, telling me I should consume others with powers to save myself. Was this urge just a residue from when I was in beast mode? I didn't have any clue how to stop the Adumbrae from taking over my body. It should be impossible, that was general knowledge. However, the Adumbrae working with the 2MS might have found a way. That was their goal after all. And maybe, that was what Rofirio was doing. I couldn't expect any help from Dario and his group. They'd kill me if they knew I was an Adumbrae. But what if I tried out what Rofirio said? That was why I ate him back then. My thinking may be wrong, but so far, the only visible abnormality on my body remained to be the small crystal on my palm. It hadn't grown or anything. And I was able to return to my human form after transforming into a huge monster. So, maybe I'm right. Rule number 8 prevented me from killing myself, which consequently meant I also couldn't throw away my sole lead at survival. I planned to use Dario and his group to get me to the rest of Rofirio's group, their experiments, the Adumbrae among their ranks, any information that could help me, and all potential food to consume. But what if we eventually won? What if there were no more bad guys? No more food for me? "We will all get through this alive," Dean's promise echoed in my head as we traveled in her car. No. That wouldn't happen. After I eat all mutant experiments, all the Adumbraes I could find, and there were no more, I'd move on to the remaining group of people with powers. I gave Dean a sideways glance as she concentrated on driving. I had no qualms eating Myra and the others, but I made a mental apology to Dean because there may come a time I'd have to eat her too. Only I will get through this alive.